Good morning. How are you all today? I want to thank you so much for your time. You know, time is our most expensive and priceless commodity that we have, and we sure appreciate that of you today. You've got a great day ahead of you. I want to point out from the agenda perspective that we've got a couple of changes. One of them actually is, and you'll have your agenda, so you've already looked at this, so you already know it. So I really don't have to say it, but I just want to make sure that you know this. We have postponed our pitch competition, but you're going to hear from some fantastic speakers this afternoon as well. So the folks that I want to introduce you to primarily, and he's standing back in the room, I'm going to point out Charles Sauer. How are you? So Charles is an entrepreneur. He is the part of the U.S. Inventors organization, and he and Jim Edwards, who you're going to hear from a little bit later on, are the co-presenters and co-developers of the Inventors project. We're so thrilled to have them in Kansas City. If you could just give them a round of applause and a welcome and a thank you for the day. My name is Lee Langerock. I'm with the Independence Regional Innovation Center, known as the Innovation Center. And so we're a business resource. We're a business incubator. We help companies grow. And so we're really pleased to host the Inventors project and the day today. Again, thank you very much for your time. You know, I've been in sales and marketing for a number of years, and one time I had to do a job interview, and so we were interviewing each other. I wasn't really familiar with the CEO. He wasn't really familiar with me. So I walked into the room after a little bit of a wait, and we were sizing each other up, and he looked at me, and he'd heard about me from other folks about my ability to do sales and marketing. And so as he walked over to me, he looked at me, and he was a little cocky about it, and he handed me his laptop, and he said, "I want you to sell this to me for $200. So I took his laptop and left. He called me and he said, "Hey, bring my laptop back." I said, "Give me $200. So I stole that off the internet, and I thought that would be really appropriate as we talk about IP protection, because I'm not really quite sure if that was a copyrighted a joke or not. So I treat it as such. But for us, you know, IP protection is really, really one of the very first things when a company comes to me and they say, "I have an idea." It's at what level and at what jumping point do you really surround that and connect with that IP? What can you say over and above it so you can get your message across without actually infringing on what you're trying to develop? And then how do you protect that IP? How do you put that in such a framework that it's defensible and that you've got a marketable product that actually will help generate revenue for you and help keep you on track so you can continue to bring projects and ideas to fruition? We're really excited today to bring you a great panel of folks to help you do that, to perform that. And so I'm looking across the audience here, and I know just from a few conversations prior to the event that we have folks in the audience that, you know, for example, they know they're great idea people. They know how to collect the data, start the project, work the project through, get it to a point, go through IP. How do we get it to market? I had another conversation with a company that it's their whole world to develop ideas. They do it for other people, but how do they protect their own? How do they bridge that divide from the when this is mine to when this is another? And then yet again, a conversation with some folks when that really look at this and say, you can't emphasize enough the ability to protect your intellectual property, and you have to know the value of that as well. And again, you have to be able to articulate that too. So again, so excited to have the panel of folks to talk to you. We want to encourage interaction as we go through the day too. So as you see on the agenda, we have the very first speaker is a gentleman who's going to talk to you about the elevator pitch. I am so appreciative of this because as we discuss our business, as we discuss our idea, as we discuss and move that towards capitalization, or as we discuss and move that towards market, it's so important to be able to articulate much better than I am doing right now. So we're thrilled with that. We also are going to have a panel discussion. It's going to be moderated by Jim, but it's going to include Jeff Shackelford, who's with Digital Sandbox KC. For those of you not familiar with this is early stage tech funding, proof of concept funding that we're so fortunate in Kansas City to have. And so Jeff's going to join me and Garrett and as panelists to talk about that intellectual property. You're going to hear from an attorney that really kind of lives in both worlds of intellectual property protection and what policy surrounds that. And then you're going to have a couple of other people from a national perspective that have been there, done that, and I know that's why you all are here, because you want to hear from the folks who have been there, done that, to find out really how that is, how and what we're doing at the federal level to continue to promote and defend that constitutional right to be able to develop and own our own idea. We also want to make sure that you enjoy the day as well. So again, it's really interactive. Want to thank our sponsors for the day, which is the U.S. Inventors Organization Innovation Center. Works Lab at the Innovation Center is a co-working space. They sponsored the breaks today. And thank you to all our speakers up here. Charlie, have I missed anything? Are we good to go? All right, I'd be pleased to invite Garrett up here. Garrett Gardner is with Full Voice, and Garrett is described as one of the nation's foremost vocal communications experts and trainers. So he's the founder of this organization, which is a trademarked organization, and I met him first at the Inventors Club of Kansas City, which is also one of our partnering organizations. So Garrett is really a terrific guy. Really appreciate your time and attention with him today. Thank you very much again for being here, and I'm exiting the stage.
All right. Now, one thing I don't use is a podium. I'm out here on the same level as you are. It isn't an elevator speech, except that that's what most people think it is. Can you talk about what you want people to know in a concise manner? Can you get it across to them so that they might be interested in listening further? The reason I say this is, getting them to listen further, you have to get to the basics first. You can't go to the subtle. The subtle is where the learning takes place, but unless you get the attention of the audience or an individual, you can't go any further. I'll give you an example. Once there were 3 bears: the mama bear, the papa bear, and the baby bear. Those are the basics. Once I have your attention, I can talk about the blonde. You all know who the blonde is. Goldilocks, okay? But I can't start with Goldilocks. I have to start with the basics. By the way, do you know why it's always mama bear first? Because if mama ain't happy, ain't nobody happy. You've all heard that line before. All right, so what I want to talk about is developing a short spiel that you can make about yourself and the product that you're talking about. People ask me, how do I introduce myself? This is how I do it. 4 parts: who I am, who I'm with, what I do, and how does it benefit someone. The benefit statement is your key. So I'm Garrett Gardner with Full Voice. I'm a vocal communication trainer. My job is to help you sound like you know what you're saying. Hear how that flows? So what I do for my clients, one of the things I do, is help them come up with a benefit statement. So I will tell each of you, because by the time I'm done, you'll all have my business card, to send me words and phrases you use to describe what you do. I'll give you a couple benefit statements. Now, how can I get away with doing this without charging you? Once you know me, you'll tell other people about me. That's how you build your business. So the more you give, the more you get. I'm really serious about this. Send me the words and phrases you use to describe in 5 or 10 minutes what you do, and I'll give you something you can do in 30 seconds. Okay. Now, to show you how this works, I have a lady that I met years ago who worked for the Boyle Meat Company. The Boyle Meat Company, their slogan used to be, the corned beef people. And I said to her one day, what do you do the rest of the year? And she said, what do you mean? I said, St. Patrick's Day. That's the only time we think about corned beef and cabbage, right? Unless you live in Kansas City and do a lot of brisket. Other than that, what do you do the rest of the year? And she said, well, we send steaks through the mail. Turns out they send more steaks through the mail than any other company you've heard of. So I said, here's your new line. I'll put a stake in your future and help you out in lean times. Now she said, how do you do that? I said, I'm not in your box. Each of you is in a box about what you think others want to hear. But they don't want to hear all that stuff. They want you to get their attention, so they're willing to listen to all that other stuff. Let me say that again. They're interested in you're getting their attention. So when I say to people, I'm on an elevator, we talk about elevator speech, this guy says to me, oh, you must be a doctor, you have your bow tie on. I said, no, but I write like one. Right? I always wear a bow tie so that when I follow up with people, I say, I'm the vocal communication trainer, the guy in the bow tie. We met at the, and it's instant recognition, and that's what you're looking for, is instant recognition. So, Christy Chester has taken it steps further. After she says, we'll put a stake in your future and help you out in lean times, then she says it's rare that when we get together, we don't have a sizzling good time. Nobody forgets Christy Chester. Nobody. And that's where you want to be with your clients, with your funders, anyone that you're trying to work with. You want to have instant recognition. So it isn't an elevator speech. It's a benefit statement. Because people don't buy features. They buy benefits. When you buy insurance, what do you buy insurance for, Lee? That's correct. So that's the benefit. So I help people protect their assets, is what that insurance agent should say to people. That making sense? As I go along in my, do I have 20 minutes? Is that how long I have?
Sure, you're doing good.
Okay, and you just wave at me when it's time for me to shut up, because I talk about this stuff for 8 hours a day. Okay, so where was I? What was the last thing I said?
Protect your assets.
Protect your assets. Now, if you're in the donkey business, they're protecting their asses. Now, I wasn't thinking about saying that. It just came out because I get out of the way. And here's the most important thing I'm going to tell you today. I never know what I'm going to say, but I do know what I'm going to talk about. You don't have to know the words. The words get in the way. You start thinking about what you're going to say next, and it screws up everything. And I've heard everybody, I don't care what level they are at, do this. And this is what it sounds like. Well, today I want to talk about this thing, and oh, God, I forgot my line. Don't forget your lines. Don't have lines. Talk about what you know. Now, knowing is your connection to the universe. You can't keep everything here. We park things in other places and in other people, and we go and get it when we need it. So you don't have to know what the words are. And to show you this is really true, somebody give me a subject to talk about. Cat care is something I would never be interested in because I like doggies. And I could go on from there. A woman said to me once, carpet fibers. Tried that one on. She was trying to catch me. She was an HR professional. You know, their job is not to give you the job, it's to give it to someone else. I hope I'm not offending any HR people in the room. If I am, thank you. Okay, so I said, well, carpet fibers are really important because if you don't have enough fibers in your carpet, you have holy carpet. And of course, holy carpet can only be used for religious ceremonies. She fell out of her chair, and nobody left the room. Now, I do a lot of MC work for national and international conventions through the years, and my job is to get the attention of the final banquet, 1,500 people at the Navy Pier. So what I do is throw that out to them, and when I can respond, they all join me. That's what you want for your business. You must be able to relax about what you know and allow it to flow through you to other people. Somebody else give me another subject. What? Circus. Circus is a wonderful hotel out in Las Vegas. If you've never been there, you'll only go once. It will drive you nuts. On the other hand, I think the Venetian is a wonderful place because they have a show there called Frank. It's all about Frank Sinatra. Bob Anderson is the finest mimic of Frank Sinatra you've ever seen in your life. And the showroom is on the same spot as the Copa room of the original Sands. And he comes out and there's a 32-piece orchestra. Halfway through the show, you forget it's not Frank. Now, see how I got to what I wanted to talk about coming off the other thing? So you can do it too. Questions? Questions? I'm that good? Come on. What's your agenda? By the way, if I do a workshop in what I do, the first thing I ask the audience, be it 12 or 13 or 14 people, what do you want me to talk about? Because everybody comes with their own agenda. So when somebody is standing up in front of you like I am today, by the way, I'm doing Oprah. This is called Oprah. Well, how are you? How's everything going?
Great.
Wonderful. Okay, that's Oprah. It's also Phil Donahue. He started it. Yes, sir.
What if you have an idea that you haven't patented or protected and you want to still talk to people about what you do?
Okay, you get them to sign a little piece of paper that says they won't tell anybody about it.
Before your 30-second...
Oh, with the 30-second? I've invented a product that is from the household area. And it's really going to help people when they have to take meat out of the oven. You're not really telling them what it is, but you're whetting their appetite. That's what this is all about. Whet their appetite. Don't give away information that you shouldn't give away. Before you start talking about it, have a patent, at least a provisional, before you start talking to people. Get them to sign what is that thing called? Very good, see? I could have said that, but then now I'm incorporating you in the talk. That's what you want to do with other people. You want to incorporate them in the conversation. Because I don't dictate information. I have a conversation with the audience. Questions? Not only Charlie. Come on. Yes, sir. Yes, just a second. Let me come over to you so they can hear what you're saying.
How do you go from being a singer to what you do?
How do I go from being a singer? By the way, I'm a professional entertainer, singer, guitarist, have a band. I'll tell you what it is. If you can handle this as a singer, you can handle this as a public speaker. Because my band will tell you, they don't understand how I can talk to the audience in between songs and come back where I'm supposed to finish the song. I said, I'm tied to the music. You are tied to your music. You just don't know how to let it out. So, becoming a public speaker, I've been on stage since I was 10 years old. I have no fear, not afraid. I can wax Sinatra at a moment's notice. The shadow of your smile when you are gone will capture all my dreams and light the dawn. Shall I go on? No. It's a knowing that I have that I can do this. That's what I help other people do, and I've been doing it for 25 years in Kansas City. Yes?
So what advice do you give to help people get out of their box?
Come see me. I'll get you out of your box, woman. Ain't no problem. You have to get past the worry of people asking you something you can't answer. But you know 99% more about what you do than they do. They can't catch you. Ask me a question about anything. You can't. I can respond. I'm not afraid. I know what I'm talking about, which hopefully is why they invited me here today. So anyway, you're going to have a really good time the rest of this day, but you need to get involved. Don't just listen. Participate. Lee? Thank you.
Garrett, thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us, and then also for introducing us to the idea that we can get out of our own ways, that the idea to develop an idea is important, but to be able to articulate that in such a fashion before we get to that point, and not to give away the secret sauce. The Innovation Center has a commercial kitchen, so I can say that literally, but to be able to really communicate with other folks about your idea. You've got that ability to do that, and I loved what you just said. Get away from the worry of it. Don't worry about what you're going to say. You know it. You're the material expert in here, so that's one really wonderful way to look at from that perspective and have the confidence to move forward. So,
yeah, one thing I failed to do, I do this every once in a while, I brought a syllabus for the course that I teach entrepreneurs. It's called Becoming a Talking Sell Sheet. I'll put them up here on the table. You can take one.
thank you. Thanks. Please thank Garrett again. Yeah, thank you. He's going to join us in a panel, so Garrett, if you want to go ahead and sit down after you drop those off there, that'd be great. I want to introduce to the stage James Edwards. Jim is the founder of Elite Strategic Services, and he advises health and IP people and is co-director of the Inventors Project. Jim's going to be our moderator today. He's also going to be our closer, so I look forward to hearing from him a little bit later on in the day. But I want to also invite up to the stage, along with Garrett, Jeff Shackelford with Digital Sandbox. We're going to be up here. We've got some questions and answers to do. I'm going to be up on stage with you, too. Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, Lee. Well, it's a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you all for coming. I think you've met 2 out of 3 already of our panelists, and Lee and Garrett, and now we're joined by Jeff Shackelford, of the Director of Digital Sandbox. How many of you are entrepreneurs? Okay, a good smattering. How many are inventors? How many are both? Great. You came to the right place, and so did we. At the core of any business, there's some kind of intellectual property, whether you're aware of it or not. IP is inextricably linked to a business's competitive advantage. Just as you need clear title to real property in order to use it, securing intellectual property is important to get the freedom to operate. Whether it's a patent or copyrighted material, trademark, a trade secret, or a combination, IP is your company's crown jewels. Likewise, at the core of any business strategy, there's likely to be an IP strategy. And that's what this panel will address. What I'm going to do is, I've already introduced the panel. I'm going to pose some questions to the panel, and then we're going to open it up for question and answer from the audience as well. So this will be quickly very engaging. To build a profitable business, what do you try to do? You try to increase the value of that business. You try to expand its assets. Well, it's not just tangible assets, but also intangible assets, including things like patents. IP increases the value of your company. There's typically some kind of an R&D component, and that expands the number of patents or other IP assets. Many people innovate around the initial invention. Some patent processes, materials, and other related matters to their core patent or intellectual property. There are many things to consider in planning your business and IP strategies. The risk and benefits of disclosure are important to weigh. It determines whether or not you're going to patent something or keep it a trade secret. How long is the usual patent pendency in your industrial sector? How about your facilities and resource strategy? That factors into what you're going to manufacture yourself, what you're going to license to others to manufacture for you, what the IP is that you might sell, or what the priority is, how you prioritize your commercialization of each of those assets. And there's also, as mentioned earlier, the capital needs of your company. Securing your IP protection can help to de-risk a company as an investment prospect. So these are the things we want to discuss and consider in this panel. So to kick off our discussion, let me pose this question. Panelists, in your experience, what's the most important role that IP has played in building a business? What's the most important role IP has played in building a business?
Well, I'll answer that from a really near-term situation, right? How many of you have heard of iVerify? Just sold for nearly $100 million. The first U.S. investment, the Alibaba, the Chinese eBay unit has a venture arm. First investment they ever made in the United States, right here in Kansas City, iVerify, right? You know what iVerify does? I can take a picture of your eye, and it's more identifiable than your fingerprint. Happened to be technology developed by a UMKC professor as he worked towards his doctorate and so on. Found a local entrepreneur who said, if we can do it on a phone, might be a business out there, immediately have the IP, the patents, the things to go with it. The interest that came from Alibaba was it was a protected idea. And the fact that they'd worked 4 years on it to prove that it would work on a handset and so on. But the value of IP becomes when you get asked, and I'll use Lee's term, what's your secret sauce by a potential investor, or what differentiates you from somebody else, or why do you think you can pull off this idea? Any protection that you can have whatsoever, and it doesn't always have to be the traditional IP patent. It can be industry expertise. It can be barriers to entry into the particular area that you may be looking to start a business, because if it's difficult for someone not in an industry to get into that type of business, that's intellectual property that you have. It can be any number of things that beyond what we typically think, have you got the patent file. Whatever it is, that's going to be the value if and when you decide to raise money. And investors want to see some advantage that you have, and how well can you protect that.
So I work with very, very early stage companies. I work with the people that call the Innovation Center, and we serve the Kansas City region, but the people that call the Innovation Center usually start out with, I have an idea. How they articulate that idea to us is different in most cases, but it all starts with that idea. And so when you look at IP protection and really how it integrates with and how important it is, it's the basis for what you're building. It's the basis of your company. So as inventors, and as Jeff said, that protection could be in various forms, that intellectual property comes in various forms, but you have to think of it as almost an atomic particle to where it has the core, which is the basis of your idea, and then you have, and then you grow it from there. It doesn't necessarily grow in a straight line either. I saw a lot of entrepreneurial hands get raised at the same time that the inventor hands did as well. So you know that it's not a straight pathway to do that, but you always have that idea or that core idea as the impetus and the baseline for your company. And so intellectual property protection and making sure that you have that core basis protected, it is your basis, but it's also your value add, as Jeff said. Making sure that you have that, making sure that we have that resource in place to be able to roll that into and through the mature life of the company, from the idea stage all the way to where you want to get it to market, I think is absolutely critical too. So that's I mean, it is the basis and it is the core, and it's something that you all understand is valuable, or you wouldn't be here today.
And if I could just touch on a point that was made earlier, Lee and I both, particularly at the Digital Sandbox, we see very early stage entrepreneurs and at proof of concept. We will not sign an NDA. So I've had people come in and say, before I tell you anything about the idea, you need to sign an NDA. And we can't because we've seen 350 early stage entrepreneurs present to us across a topic of all kinds of industries and ideas. And 9 times out of 10, we've probably seen something already similar than what you have in your head, despite the fact we all think we come up with the single most unique opportunity in the world. As people come to me with software ideas in the healthcare space and say, you're not going to share this with Cerner, are you? I just remind them that Cerner has 14,000 employees worldwide who are really, really smart, and they probably already thought of it. Doesn't mean that you shouldn't pursue it. It may not be big enough for Cerner to deal with. It may not be in their core capabilities, but I'm not signing an NDA. As Garrett alluded to, there are ways to describe your idea without giving away any secrets, right? I could describe Coca-Cola as a very sugary, wonderful, somewhat addictive drink that I think once people taste, they will want to have more of. I really haven't said anything about the magic formula that they kept hidden for all those years, right? There are always ways to describe your idea. As a very early stage entrepreneur, the more resources that you can use, and those resources may be the Innovation Center, they may be the Digital Sandbox, they may be the Small Business Technology Development Center, they may be UMKC's block program, they may be any number of things, they may be mentors, advisors. You're gonna need to share information. I've seen directly the percentage of success goes up immensely if you will use lots of resources. So you're gonna have to get to a point of being able to describe what your concept is, and that's exactly what it is, to some people that can help you. Unless you want to go it alone. And some people go it alone, and that's strictly up to you. I've had people who say, the Digital Sandbox provides up to $25,000 in project development funds. We don't take equity, you don't pay us back. We want to get you in business as quick as we can because we want you to hire people. So people will come and say, I want a grant, but I can't tell you what the idea is. Well, I can't help you. And if you're that sensitive and you really believe you can't share it, this isn't the right place for you. And if they go, I hope they go it alone, and I hope they get in business, and I hope they become freight quote and have 600 people employed here. But most of the time, what we see is you're going to need to use a lot of resources. So you'll have to get to a point or spend a lot of money early in the process because, as we know, doing prior art searches and hiring IP attorneys and so on can be really, really expensive, and you may find out you can't patent the idea anyway. So it's really up to you, but you're going to have to get comfortable with at least giving enough of an idea, as Garrett said, for somebody to go, oh, tell me more. And I promise you that the evaluating team we have at the Digital Sandbox, none of us are looking to get in business. None of us want to take your idea and put in the work it's going to require to give it a shot at being in business. We want to get you in business.
Security. That's what we're talking about. And your security begins with what you know. Start with what you know and build from there. Build your IP from there.
The other week, I was visiting with this startup company. I had mentored them through a digital health program of an accelerator in my home state of South Carolina. And so 2 years hence, visiting with them and learning about where they were, and they have gone a long way, but they're still pre-revenue. And this company has very carefully and deliberately thought through an intellectual property strategy. This company has a platform for providing training online. It will eventually include both to the target, which is medical providers in a certain field, but it will also be available to consumers, direct to consumer. But this company, planning early on for patents, copyrights on their material, for trade secrets, for trademarks, integration of several subsidiaries and trademarking those elements of their business. So that's the kind of forethought I think we're all kind of suggesting. What's an example of how you increased a company's assets by increasing intellectual property?
I think the example that Jeff gave at the very first with iVerify speaks volumes for really that component of increasing the business capacity by protecting that intellectual property. But whether you're selling for $100 million or whether you're growing that company up to whatever that goal is that you've got within that focus and that range of focus, making sure that that intellectual property strategy is in place is important. As a resource, we help companies every day integrate that into their processes. And I can tell you that we see over and over companies that go to market, and it's always a fight to how quickly can I go to market with this, because I know somebody's gonna have that same idea and run with it. And how do I actually position myself and have that process in place? And as we work with companies to be able to do that, the core things that we want to make sure, as Jeff mentioned, as Garrett mentioned, you have your idea articulated, you have your resources around you identified so that they can help you. If you're working with other folks, I'd say that one of the things that we've seen consistently is that you have it in writing. So if you're working with someone who's helping you develop that, then you make sure you have the proper papers in place, so if they are developing it, there's a handoff, or if it's part theirs, they're part owners, and that's decided up front, not after, because it's harder to negotiate and it's harder to value after you've gotten to that point. Specific examples are companies that, and something that's really difficult to actually perform intellectual property on are recipes. So we have a lot of different companies that hold those as trade secrets because they're smaller companies and they want to grow their product in the marketplace. So they're always just like Coca-Cola, they're going to hide that secret sauce, they're going to hide that recipe, and that's a great example of just proprietary knowledge base. Or if you're in the software, having a particular code that's yours, that you copyright. We have companies that will look at copywriting that code. Or if it's a brand, you're trademarking. One of the things I would say on that, and that I've seen consistently in the marketplace, is an idea overvalued when it comes to negotiating for that early stage finance. So you just have to be careful that you're not, as the inventor or as the person in the arena as an entrepreneur, that you're not overvaluing that and losing out on some really significant assistance to help you move that marketplace forward. Because I've seen more companies die at that stage, at the negotiation stage, where they get into 1 to 2% or 2 to 5%. Then, and I don't know if that's been your experience as well. At the same time, what you have is of value. So we talk about protecting that. We want to make sure that those assets are protected. But I've seen I've seen both examples. I've seen people that have sold and been able to bring in partners, not necessarily sell, because maybe that's not their intention. They've been able to bring in partners and grow because they valued it right. I've seen companies die because the inventor might be a wonderful inventor, wonderful idea person, needs that partnership and needs someone else to help push them into the business realm. So just as you're open to ideas in how you articulate, I would encourage you to be open to looking at your expertise and your strengths and finding someone that fills those gaps too.
I would just add, in the tech space, it is difficult to patent or really get a lot of IP protection around software because I can change a comma or change a couple of things around and bypass it. So, but we've seen a few companies, if you're looking to develop a technology or a process that you want to license. So one example was a company in the telecom space had come up with what they thought was a new technology for routers for big, like Netflix and others, to really reduce the amount of overhead and so on. But they went into it with the intention that we're not going to make routers and manufacture. We've got the software. We know how to make that piece work. So we know we're going to license this to the bigger players. So their IP strategy was extremely important to figure out how to get it nailed down and get it protected, because if I license it to you and you use it, you're going to figure out how it works. And it would be pretty easy to emulate that. But that protection will keep their customers from saying, after a year or two, I really don't need to pay the licensing fees. So if you're moving into that direction, and it may be a product that you're not going to manufacture, but if that product has some uniquenesses that you can gain IP protection around, you can still protect the product even though you're not manufacturing it. So trying to remember the gentleman out of the UMKC e-scholar program that came up, believe it or not, with a magnetic tool vest that you put on, and you can stick sockets and things on there, because belts, wearing a belt, the old-fashioned belts, depending on like HVAC and other industries, you can't slide in and out of the spaces you got to get into. So he had spent some money and got the right people and figured out how to get some protection, because it was harder than you think to make the magnets work. Working with magnets is not easy. So he's not manufacturing it, somebody else is, and so on. So if you're going into it, and we see a lot of people that we say, are you going to jump into this business and do it, or are you thinking somebody else? We say white label a lot. You're going to white label it, and somebody else is going to use your product or use the service or use the technology. Then you've really got to have an IP strategy going in, saying, how do I protect this? Because I'm going to open up the curtain and they're going to see the magic. So that magic needs to be protected.
The most important thing, and he just used the term, software, is what you know. You can always develop further down the line as your product expands, but you want to keep the basis there, and that's your software.
And I don't know how often you have run across this. I'd be interested to hear, but talking to several entrepreneurs in this space and to patent attorneys, or IP attorneys, is with copyright on software code, what you're doing is copywriting that exact language, but other people can write other code that does the same thing. But the patent protects the functionality, and people don't often appreciate or distinguish that aspect. And if you patent the functionality, that means whatever code they write that's different from yours, if it does what yours does, they're infringing. I didn't know how often you've run across that kind of example?
You know, it's interesting, as a small company, a startup in particular, you may have patent protection. It's still very expensive to fight that. And so you're gonna, you know, depending on who, you know, if you have come up with the next iOS operating system that's better than Apple's, or Apple thinks you have, and they were to jump into that, they've got a lot of money, and you're, you know, they know that. And so we often tell a lot of folks the best protection you can have is get in the market and get customers, and grow your business. And customers get accustomed, particularly in the software space, to what they're using, and it's sometimes very difficult to get them to try something new. I mean, it is great to have intellectual property, but also know that if the day comes, you're going to have attorneys to fight that battle.
Also, if you keep innovating about your product, you'll stay ahead of the game. You have to keep moving it forward to the next level.
Well, I think what we've seen, and the companies I've been involved with has experienced, is it's really about a layered game. It is getting to market, bringing your product to market. In some cases, depending on what your invention is, that may be your best protection. Otherwise, you're looking at an IP strategy that is multi-layered, and defensive IP is your most expensive and long-term and costly animal. So it is relevancy in the marketplace that ultimately dominates. But it also is that from an early stage, you know, get it in writing and at least know where you are in that process.
Most of your large companies, if you look at acquisitions that even Cerner makes, you know, we all think of them as the giant, not the giant, I mean, there's others, but here in town, in the healthcare space, most of the acquisitions they'll make will be buying a feature or functionality that a smaller company figured it out, got it to market, and proved that it worked. And Cerner realizes it would take us 3, 4, 5, 6 years because we got so much going on. So let's just grab that and roll them in. So if you keep moving and keep innovating and show that you can bring customers on and that you're filling a need, if your exit strategy happens to be selling to a larger company, the best thing you can have are customers. They'll worry about the IP and how to protect it and how that rolls into it. We had 2 young ladies in the residential real estate business who came to the Sandbox and said, you know what we need when we show houses, we tell the people, you need to take your kids and be gone for 3 hours, and we might only spend 10 minutes showing the house because the people didn't like it. So we have an idea for a mobile app that'll tell you the realtor's on the way, they'll tell you they arrived, they'll tell you when they leave, and then we need to collect a little data, so on. But we don't know anything about creating a mobile app. And that's, Sandbox provides that kind of project funding and expertise. So we said, you know, we'll help you build it. So they built it. They proved that it worked pretty quickly. We helped them get a few beta customers, and they sold it to the largest showing service, second largest showing service in the country out of Chicago, because that company said, we need the feature. We already book all the showings, but we need the feature. So, you know, that's kind of a real life example of figure out a problem that exists and find a solution, and don't always worry about, well, there's a bigger player. There's somebody else in the market. If there's still a problem that exists and it's not being served by anybody, see if you can solve it. You know, we see a lot of people sometimes in the Sandbox that will tell them, you've got a solution, but I don't know what the problem is. Just because you've thought of something doesn't mean there's a market. And so we try to flip that with who wakes up in the morning and says, I can't live without this. If you can find those things and you get those people and you can fill that void, there'll be a market for it. And you may grow that market yourself, or you may find a bigger player who says, wow, we see the same problem. Yep. Gentleman holding up a phone in the back.
Garrett, I'll do a mic up here.
Oh.
Just and I'll hold the mic out here for questions.
Those ladies had the idea. They came to you and they got the resources, and then they sold it. It's there's a South Park episode. It's the underwear gnomes, and there's step 3 is profit. So you gave us step 1 and step 2, and then they sold it, and that's profit. There seems to be a gap. Can you kind of explain what happened between getting the beta customers and the actual selling to the company?
Well, a couple things. They weren't, their long-term intention was not to run a business built around a single mobile app, because there really wasn't one there. They saw a need in the market. You know, they were experts in that field. Again, when folks, we've seen 360 early stage entrepreneurs present us with their ideas over the last 2.5, 3 years, right? So the ones that always seem to, we really enjoy seeing, seem to be people in their area of expertise, right? I jokingly say, if you cut hair all day long and you come to me and you go, I've got an idea for a better pair of scissors, I'm going to listen. If I tell you that every 6-7 weeks I happen to be sitting in the chair, and while I was sitting there, I'm contemplating, there's probably a better way for a pair of scissors, I would tell you that the person that lives it and breathes it every day is going to have a better idea than I am. And so their area of expertise was residential real estate. They saw a real problem. They said there's a way to fix the problem. They went into it with the idea, we'll probably sell this to someone. And so that's exactly what they did. From a confidentiality standpoint, we never would disclose what they sold. They asked us not to disclose what they sold it for. It was a nice check for both the young ladies. They continue their career in residential real estate. They consult with this company to on that particular product. So they were very happy, and our only disappointment was from a Sandbox perspective. We're in the business of creating jobs in Kansas City. Well, when you had an exit. In Chicago, that didn't create jobs here, but that's just part of early stage entrepreneurship, right? I mean, Toby Rush with iVerify took the $100 million from Alibaba, but their headquarters are going to be here. They're going to grow that business here.
So the introduction to the company that bought it, though, that was through Digital Sandbox?
It was through, as I like to say, you're probably 2 degrees separated from anybody in the world if you really put your mind to it. So it was through a series of connections to go, there's 2 large showing agencies in the United States. You need to get to both of those and see which one. There happened to be a connection here that said, well, let's get to the one in Chicago and see what they say. They immediately liked the idea, and then it went on from there. We at the Sandbox did not get involved. We help you get a minimal viable product built. We'll help you find some beta customers, and we'll spend a lot of time getting you ready to go raise money, because you got to raise money if you want to hire people and create jobs. So we have funded 72 projects in the last 3 years. 49 of those have raised collectively $28.3 million, and it's created 365 organically grown jobs in the metropolitan area. And that's the business we're in. We're an economic development play. We just recently partnered with Independence to find early stage entrepreneurs in Independence. We have a partnership with Olathe. We just launched an energy sandbox. So if you have any idea related to, I'm going to turn this into a commercial here. Go right ahead. Any idea.
It's money. It's all right, Jeff. It's okay.
Out there, folks.
Any idea related to energy, I would encourage you to bring it forward, and that can be. You've got an idea of how to tie into a Nest thermostat at home, or actually I've seen motorized vents at home, so you could change where your airflow is in the house, to you think you've got the best car battery ever invented, to wind, solar, whatever that can be related to energy. We want to see at a very, very early stage. We partnered with the parent company of Great Plains Energy, which is actually owns KCP&L. So again, people will say, well, I'm not going to bring you an idea that's early stage energy when your sponsor is KCP&L. Have any of you dealt with a utility? They don't really come up with a lot of new ideas. They're pretty stuck in their own path, and they'll admit to that. So they just happen to be the one that said, what we look for is, can we stimulate early stage ideas in an energy sector, because we think between Great Plains and Black & Veatch and Burns & Mac and even J.E. Dunn, who's in the big construction business, and all these architectural firms, it's all resources we have here, so why not play in the space? And we play in the sand. That's why we call it Sandbox. Bring your idea and see what we can make of it.
He was talking about problems. 25 years ago, somebody said to me, I got to make a speech in 2 weeks and I can't think of anything else. Do you know anybody who can help me? I said, sure. It became a business. The number 1 fear is speaking in public. The number 2 fear is what we do when we're talking to one another. We're trying to develop a relationship. Guess who had the answer? The problem is, there aren't a whole lot of people who know how to do this, so I didn't worry about my intellectual property, I just jumped in with both feet.
And I would tell you, and you guys, especially those of you that are inventors, you know, there's an old saying about pioneers got slaughtered and settlers got rich. It's not always the first idea. You know, so sometimes people look and go, well, somebody clearly had thought of a mobile phone before Apple decided to get in the game. So even though you may think, well, I saw something similar or there's something in the marketplace, doesn't mean there's not room for you to play, modify it, you know? I might make the iPhone covers, but good Lord, if I sell them in 22 different colors, I can sell a whole lot of them. So it's not always, I gotta find something that doesn't exist today. Maybe it's looking at something and finding a different use for it. Or Viagra was not designed to do what it does. It was a blood pressure medicine to begin with, right? Well, they found another market for it, probably one that's actually been more successful for them. So a lot of people get enamored with, I gotta find some area that nobody exists in. You know, when people come to us and say, it's a huge market, it's a $10 billion market, and nobody's in the market. All right, I do two things when they present. I have a Mac in front of me and I Google a very simple search to find out, are there any competitors? And then I tell them, if it's a $10 billion market and there's nobody in it, there's probably a reason. Maybe it's a problem that the largest companies in the world have thrown a bunch of money at and haven't been able to solve, right? Is that really where you want to go? And maybe you are. Maybe you're smarter than everybody who's tried it before. But typically, that's not going to be the case. So I don't want to ramble. This gentleman had a question.
I have a business growth consulting firm, so we're constantly working with clients from, We're constantly working with clients.
I know, nice, right? You've got the stage.
Now you got
Wow,
the
I feel like
FM
I have a
voice.
presence here. We're constantly trying to scale the businesses. Sometimes there's a lot of process issues that we're constantly trying to solve. They're focused in real estate investing and they don't want to get into the technology space necessarily. They want to stay laser focused on what their business is. What would be your recommendation on how we create strategic partnerships with technology providers that where we would develop software that would help this business, but that would long-term help businesses at large?
So, one of the points that Jeff had made or had alluded to is how do you create that strategy? Where do you find those partnerships? And that's exactly your question. How and where do you find those partnerships? Some of it's research. And a lot of it, and almost all of it is, you've got to really define, there's a lot of work from an entrepreneurial side. It's not that any resource should or does come in and says, you do this. You as the entrepreneur, as the inventor, need to do some homework on who you want to be partners with. Also, from a technology perspective, we have companies that have come to us from a resource perspective saying, this is what I do. And so we try to vet those, but it's really about pairing the right partnership together and having it be part of your business strategy. In the case, the example that Jeff used for iVerify, it was in their sights and goals that they were going to sell it. In the case of the real estate application, they knew that wasn't their expertise to drive that business. Some of you out there want to own that business. You want to grow that business, and that's your business strategy. IP strategy is integrated all throughout that, just as your marketing strategy is as well. So my advice is making sure that when you're looking for that technology company, that you do research on different companies that are out there, see what their culture is, what their mission is, to be able to do that. And don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to connect. And know what you can say to them above any intellectual property conversation that you're going to have, and how it would connect together.
And I'm not sure if I understood the question of build the software for a particular business, but then be able to apply across. Yeah, so a platform.
Say we'll work with a real estate investment firm, and part of their business is construction. So, how we write the scopes and transition that to the contractors that we have, like the 10 contractors that we have on, and keeping the project on budget and on all that work. sometimes require certain softwares that allow us to put more volume through the system. So instead of being able to have 5 live projects at a time, we can have 50. Well, that's those are problems we're solving for that client. But either we can create software that's specifically coded for that client, or we can create it so that it's more, I'm not an IT person, but like dynamic, I think is the word for it, where anyone can alter the software and use it for their business. So I think this particular client's in the real estate investment field, and they don't want to move into technology, but they still need to solve that problem. But there's a lot of opportunity on the table, and we're doing all the work anyway. How do we find a technology partner who can take that nugget of work we're doing and use it more broadly in non-competing markets? Is kind of the question, I guess.
Yeah,
We've got an opportunity, but we don't really want it.
Be a tough one to answer without a lot of more specifics and without boring everybody here with those specifics. We do have companies, early stage one in particular, that just won, and another selfless plug for the digital sandbox. On Friday, they announced the Launch KC winners, which Launch KC is a $50,000 grant program that you can apply for, non-equity, so you don't have to give up any of your company. They announced their 10 winners on Friday. 5 of those winners came through the sandbox. So, past performance is no promise of future, but we have a pretty good track record of getting them ready for Launch KC. One of them, Labor Chart, gentleman in the construction business saw that small construction companies have number of crews, right? Rough-in crew, electrical crew, roofing crew, HVAC crew, and then you got a bunch of jobs, right? So you might have 50 jobs going on at the same time. And they were trying to use whiteboards and basically, pieces of paper, spreadsheets to keep all this together. And he came to us and said, I know just enough tech that we can turn this into a platform. So when the electrical crew is about to go down to we use Kauffman here as an example to do work, but we just found out that the city hasn't given us the code, approved the code, I got to send them somewhere dynamically. And so he built that for that industry. Took it to a conference as a really, really, really rough product. 11 of the first 17 people that walked up said, I'll sign up. So now you know you're onto something. Well, that will have applications outside of the construction industry, right? And you guys may be a little further along in your development than his company. We kind of advise him, stay in your niche right now. Don't, because we see a lot of early stage, and Lee probably attest to it, as we like to say, they come in and they're going to boil the ocean. And we tell them, why don't you see if you can put a cup of water in the microwave and hit 45 seconds and see if you can boil that one thing. So we're continuing to advise him, stay in this sector. You can always branch out. And usually it's kind of a dynamic collision that happens, and somebody says, hey, I'm outside the construction industry, but I need exactly the same. I call this the spreadsheet phenomenon, right? If you ever hear the story of the accountant that literally was the guy that invented the spreadsheet, Lotus Notes, if you're as old as I am, that changed the world, right? Because everybody did it, but they did it by hand. So, it's as an early stage, and I would probably even encourage as an inventor, as an early stage, find the problem you're solving, stay focused on it till you get critical mass, and critical mass to us generally means customers' revenue, hopefully break even, then you can look at other markets. Unless somebody comes out of the blue and says, oh my God, move this into my sector, and then I usually tell them, okay, you need to prepay. You need to prepay me to change my code and write this because this is my world. And don't be afraid to ask customers to pay up front. If you show them and they go, I need this, I love this, terrific, I can get it developed really quickly, but I need you to prepay. And then you'll find out, are they serious or not? It's like when everybody says, I've shared my invention with everybody who sees this loves it. And I jokingly say, okay, so your mom, your grandmother, the 5 guys you drink with, everybody loves it, right? Like, yeah, every time I show it, they tell me I love it. Okay, ask them for a check. You do? How about $5,000 to help me get this thing going? And then see the reaction. Is it, hey, let me get the next round of beers? Or is it, if you're serious, you got to figure that out early, right? Because, it's like we had one company that had 70 beta customers for almost a year. And we said, it's software, and we said, well, why don't you ask them to pay? Well, these are technical guys, and technical people aren't always comfortable. There's another opportunity for you. Technical people aren't always comfortable asking people to sign and buy and selling things. And they said, we don't think it has enough features. It needs more features. It needs more features. It's, whoa, you got 70 people using it, and they all tell you they love it. Why do they love it? Because it's free. Go tell them to pay $59 a month. Well, what if they won't pay $59 a month? Ask them if they'll pay $49. Why wouldn't you pay $59 a month? Is it worth $29 a month? Well, what do I need to add to it that it'll be worth $59 a month? And we told them if all 70 of your customers stop using your product but give you that information, you're light years ahead of where you are today. So it's about, you gotta get people to pay. Until somebody pays you for something, you have a hobby. What's the definition of a hobby? You spend money and don't make any. Okay? As soon as somebody pays you $1 for something, you've now created something that must have some value. So if it didn't have any value, I'm not giving you $1. But if it's free, I'm probably not going to be open and honest and tell you, I think your software is crap. You're going to go, hey, it's okay. We use it a little bit. It's kind of nice. Keep working. Play hard. Now, ask somebody to pay. Hopefully they'll say, yeah, I'll pay. Maybe they'll pay less than you think. And then you ask, Labor Chart was a great example. When he went to the conference, 11 of the small construction companies said they would use it. One large one who controls more rough-in carpenters than any contractor in the United States said, if it had these 3 things, if it could do these 3 things, I'll buy. Now, what do you think he focused on for the next 6 months and what we gave him funding for? To put those 3 things. He would not have figured that out if he had. You cannot stay in the room and polish an apple and keep getting shinier and shinier. Take it to market. See somebody will buy it. Let them take a bite. They'll tell you whether they like it or not. You got to get something out there. And this kind of is in that dilemma of IP protection. So you got to balance. If you're in unlimited pockets, then go spend money and get as much IP protection as you can. And there are certain ideas that absolutely positively should be protected before you take them to the market. There's a number of resources at the Innovation Center, the SBTDC, the Sandbox, to ask people that. Do you think I need to spend $10,000 with Acme lawyers to go research this? Most of my world, we tell them, I wouldn't do that right now. I would see what you can build and see if you can find a customer.
Yeah, there's another part to this too. If you develop a real nice website, once you have your IP in gear, the world will find you. Because I got a call one day from a lady, she said, I went to your website and it didn't say you did this, but I'm wondering if you do. And I said, does it have anything to do with communication? She said, yes. I said, I do it, and I put it together. So can you.
So one thing I'd say that I've experienced in my own businesses and those that I've helped, is growing a business and growing an idea is expanding and contracting. So knowing that you've got a product that could cross over those lines and knowing that you've got a specific market that you can develop that first track to, but there may be applications, multiple applications. You do have to acknowledge that. You have to identify it, maybe not spend a lot of time on it, because you're proofing out where that marketplace is. But what we've done at the Innovation Center, what I've done for the last 20 years, and even in my own companies, is making sure that as I have that expansion and contraction, that it's noted, that you have that down, having a business plan along with the ideation, I think is pretty critical. And I'm not talking about a 45-page business plan with spreadsheet upon spreadsheet, although I love those because I look at them and I rip them apart in 48 hours and put them back together. But having that business plan in place that and it's about identifying where you want to go. It's about who's my market and what problem I'm solving. That's articulating that. That's putting that in writing, and that gives you the executive summary that you can push to Digital Sandbox, that you can push in front of investor, that you can put in front of the marketplace, and that tells you where you are going from a very core perspective, but it also acknowledges the other potential that's there. So I think it's absolutely worth exploring those other options and how you can cross-market the platform and even find the partners necessary to develop it. But it's also not something that and a business plan, I should say, is a very dynamic animal. It's yours, it lives, it shouldn't be on a shelf. It changes, it evolves, but your core missions and your core pieces don't. But that's something that I'm not being bureaucratic when I say that. That's really legitimate because that's your basis, that's your story. And once you have that articulated, once you have that in writing, and once you have those different cross channels identified, you can come back to that after you reach your first core and say, oh, okay, here's another place where I was going to go with that, and then explore it, and that may be an entirely different business model, maybe an entirely different perspective, and may require entirely different partners to get you there.
Other questions?
Several years ago, I was a consultant for the Department of Defense. We worked with developing software and handling data related to ongoing military operations around the world. It was a very, very confidential and controlled environment. I also had a good friend of mine that worked at the Sprint Corporation. He was doing quality control on unreleased products. So from a business perspective, he also was dealing with very proprietary information. We wanted a way to be able to communicate with each other in the business day, but we were extremely aware of the fact that everything we said and did was being monitored. So to make a long story short, we developed a way for us to create text messages and send them back and forth to each other through the internet that would not raise any alarms. It passed the smell test. It did not contain any high order bits or any numeric strings or anything that you would normally associate.
That's what Hillary thought too, but that didn't work out too well. Just
sorry?
kidding. Go ahead. I'm sorry. Can't help myself.
For 5 years, we communicated like this, and were never detected by his company or by the government. We also had friends that we were associated with that wanted to be able to join in our little daily parlays, and so we looped them into our little virtual encrypted network. So we proved this software, we developed this software, and also found that we could use this software without the internet. We could actually encrypt a message, print it out, mail it, or send it by courier to someone. They could scan it in and decrypt it, answer it. We also had all the security measures to make sure that only the right person could decrypt it, whether a message was eyes only, whether a message was automatically destroy itself after being decrypted one time, all of the things you would like to have in an encryption package. Eventually, we approached an investor about taking this product to market and obtained a provisional patent, a temporary 1-year patent, to give us time to secure the rights to that product while we finished up whatever we needed to do to take the product into a full patent. The investors were anxious to get the provisional patent done. There were a few things that we still wanted to do. Primarily, we wanted to rewrite the program in a faster language than the one we originally wrote it in. Long story short, the provisional patent expired after the year because we still were not ready to be able to develop it, to rewrite it in the faster language. After that, I talked to and the investors all walked away. After that, I talked to an IP attorney who said that since you had a provisional patent and you did not go on to patent it, you now cannot patent it. You can forget about it. You had your chance, you blew it. A year. Is that correct?
Okay, I am not a patent attorney. Nor do I play one on TV.
Neither am I.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, those are the kinds of questions that people bring to the Sandbox that you say, you know what, sometimes you do have to go get professional, in this case, IP help and write a check to get it. I would never advise any, I don't know if that's right, wrong, or indifferent, but I can connect you to 20 people who will. Some may not even charge you to tell you that. Most won't. We have some that will meet with you. I don't know. It could very well be, but I'd have to believe there's a way that you have to make enough significant change in your second patent filing that would be meaningful. But again, do not take, my advice is exactly what you just paid for it. It's worth that much on those kinds of things. I also won't advise you on a term sheet. If you go to a potential investor and you come to me and say, hey, you think this is a good deal? I'm not answering that question for you. We won't pick your vendors. We won't do any of that. It's your company, your idea, your proof of concept. You got to tackle these. Those questions
Sometimes you got to write a check for professionals. You hire people to teach you how to speak professionally and deliver, lawyers and accountants. Spend the money.
So we have, and that's a great example and maybe a question for a little later on. In our program, we have from UMKC, the Director of Tech Transfer. So that may be a good question for him to be able to connect the dots. But it's also one of those things that, having your strategy as that ideation, that idea person, having your strategy in place, finding the resources, paying the dollars for those resources to know when you go to market, when you go to investors. I look at it from an investment perspective every time. I'm not a patent attorney. I'm not an intellectual property protection specialist. I look at it from a finance perspective. And so I'm going to be looking at how far are you from that, and are you being realistic in that development? And I'm always going to be on the anxious side of that. So I'm going to be the other side of that going, okay, when are you going to have this done? But that might be a great question for our panelists a little later on when Eric's here from UMKC Office of Tech Transfer.
Yeah, I will tell you, the folks that are part of the Sandbox evaluating team, we would ask you, have you gotten a release from the Department of Defense? If you came up with an idea while you work there,
Yeah.
I would guess you signed things that probably said they own that. And we had the same situation with someone who worked at Sprint, came up with this terrific idea on the cell tower and how to move the antennas to maximize and so on. And he came to us and said, I talked to my boss. My boss said I can go run with this. I said, don't spend a dime. You need to go to Sprint Legal and get a written release that says that you can run with this because they own it. Well, I don't think I ever signed anything. Go back. You worked in their network engineering group. You came up with an idea that's going to go on their towers. That would apply to the rest of the cell industry, but do not spend any more money until you go get a release. That would be the way we would view it is, when you mention Department of Defense, alarm bells go off to go, do they own that idea? So.
Well, we're running close on our time, so let's go to this question. I know there are a couple other questions. If we can respond briefly, we can do a lightning round.
Can we respond briefly?
Well, that's a big challenge. That's a big challenge.
Well, you can respond within 3 words, I know.
As I was reading patent information, the fact that your provisional application expired does not prevent you from getting a patent. What you cannot do is then use all of the research and background information on the provisional. You have to do all of that information that you did in order to get the provisional.
And I'll be as brief as I can. Be very careful on these issues. We had a very, very intelligent entrepreneur in her field of study, or her field of expertise, who started a company, but she had no experience in starting a company. And a lot of you will do this. You'll trade out work. She needed some design work and some things done. She traded work for equity. And so she told the people, if you'll do this for me, you get 10% of the company and you've got 10% of the company, and so on and so forth. So then in 2 years go by, she needs to go raise investment capital. And when you raise investment capital, somebody says, yeah, I'll throw $500,000 in the business. Everybody gets squished. I mean, your 10% goes to whatever. Those 2 people said, no, mine never goes down. She's like, what are you talking about? You never told me mine would go down. So I own they own 20% of this company forever. Well, potential investors are like, that ain't gonna fly. So she literally has to shut the company down, do the legal work to prove she's not taking any of the work they've done for her, and start a new one. She could have avoided all that for less than $1,000. So in certain areas, go get expertise, or it will haunt you at a point when it's going to cost you a lot more. Sorry.
I actually have your question over here. Well, it's kind of just the basic question that I think is important, but how do you get in to see an investor? And then let me add on to that of what, if you're getting in to see an investor, what stage should you be at, what should you bring, and what should you be prepared for?
First part, how do you get in to see an investor? The best way to get in and see an investor is to be referred by somebody who knows them. Okay, if Lance LeMay were here, who is a partner in Open Air Ventures, he'll tell you, do not send me an email. I will not answer, and I'm not going to see you. So the best way to get in is have someone like a Sandbox or an SBTDC or the Innovation Center, someone that has vetted, if you will, and said, hey, you know what? You need to see these guys, okay? What stage depends on, well, there are different investors for different stages. The term that gets thrown around a lot is I need to see a VC. I need to see a VC. If I just had $10 for everybody that came to me and said they need to see a VC, a venture capital firm, right? So then my first question is, how much money do you need? Well, I only need $300,000. Then there's not a VC in the country that wants to see you. VCs typically invest $5+ million, if not $20 million. They may control $750 million fund. You think they're going to make $300,000 investments? They can't keep track of it. So then you got to find out who's an early stage angel investor. And then even that term gets, you'll hear me say, I work with early stage. 2 earlys on purpose. In the investment community, early can mean a number of things. Early can mean your product's in the market, you actually are generating revenue, you're just not profitable. Early could mean product's not developed yet, you got to get to it. Those are 2 distinct investors. The earlier that you try to get an investor in your company, the more difficult it is, right? Because we all look perfect on a PowerPoint presentation. They want to see you can build something. That's why we try to encourage getting a minimal viable product built, get some beta customers, preferably beta customers that will pay something, even if it's a greatly reduced rate, and show that you can build things and get customers. That helps you move forward. But you have to do your homework on who is the best potential investor for you. The best early on is always, we say, friends, family, and fools. People that you can get in who aren't institutional investors because it's much easier. They know you, and they believe you can pull this off. And that's kind of the folks you're going to need to get at a very early stage.
Really shortly there, I just want to say that this goes back to that business planning, that business plan, because you have to know what you're going to ask for. Even if you don't have the budget completely defined, you have to know and be able to express what you're asking for from a dollars and cents perspective too. Just be aware of your audience. So there's not really any set time that you go after investment, and you have to look at what type of investment you want, because your market may be able to drive further growth. So you don't, it takes some planning to know what you're going to ask for, how much you're going to ask for, and where you're going to go with that. And so again, it's planning and research.
Okay, question here.
Yes, I'll keep it quick. I have a company. I need help to develop an app and also to get some paperwork for some angel investors that I have. Where should I go to get help or those expertise that I need?
So there are a lot of different resources in the community in the Kansas City area that can help you. One of the things the Innovation Center does is sit down at a very early stage or whatever stage you are at your business, sit down and look at what you really need in your business development. It may be those 2 things. It may be that you need a business advisor to walk you through and with you. But we mentioned the SBTDC, UMKC, the Innovation Center.
Yeah, where are you located in the city?
Okay.
You've got they have the EDC guys out there.
Yeah, so there's an economic development corporation there that you could go to. We serve the region. Most of the players that we worked at, the Innovation Center serves the region. We can connect you in. Yeah, so we're in Independence. We'd be happy to sit down with anyone in the room to be able to do that. And we're going to quickly push you to the right resources wherever you're located, whether those are public or private. So it's just a matter of connecting with either someone that does business planning, Mid-Continent Library, the UMKC, SBTDC, or the Innovation Center.
I would say start with meet with Lee and those folks, and they can get you connected. Those documents can be easily found with respect to term sheet for an angel. There's some templates out there you could use and modify from there. We hear a lot about business plans and pitches, right? I get asked. Actually, I think it was Thinking Big Magazine asked me to write a column on, does a startup need a business plan, and do they need to learn to pitch? And my answer to that is not if they never plan to raise any money, you don't have to have either one of those. Now, I would still suggest you have them, but if you're not going to raise money, you don't have to do anything. If you ever intend to raise money, and I say raise money, it might be a bank loan, might be a loan from a friend, so on, you're going to need the documents, and you should learn to pitch because that's your story. I run a proof of concept center that helps early stage entrepreneurs move from idea to working prototype. Ask me that a week from now, what I do for the Sandbox. I run a proof of concept center that helps early stage entrepreneurs move from idea to working concept. You'll get it down. It's part of your story. You're going to need a long story that has different parts. When he was speaking, it reminded me of if you're going to buy a book, you can flip it open and look at the 2 lines or 3 lines about the book. That's your pitch. It's whether we call it elevator pitch or not. Part of your story that you're going to have to build. Business plan becomes a big part of that story if you intend to go down that road.
Right. Another thing, too, I'm a board member for the Inventor Center of Kansas City. We have a meeting every 3rd Tuesday down in, I think it's tomorrow. Yes, there's one tomorrow. Shake your head out there. That's right. Okay. Down at Union Station in the lower level. And we'll help you get there when you can't find it, because we know it's down in the lower level.
And I think we have, this will be the last question?
What time's the meeting?
Oh, the meeting is at 6:30.
6:30 Union Station.
This will probably be a quick question. You've mentioned a lot of times how expensive it is to go it on your own, and at one point you threw out the figure of $10,000. Do IP lawyers always have to be involved if you're applying for a patent? And is that a good ballpark figure, or is it 3 times that much?
I think it's, and probably Jim and others can speak to, but what we've seen is
10,000 is fairly typical. One strategy that some inventors have used is to pay for the first one and then to use that model that you paid dearly for on subsequent ones, doing it yourself. That's a little bit riskier depending on the technology, though it might work.
Yeah, and the risk always if you don't use an IP attorney is you're going to think you've got something protected, and you may find out at the worst possible time, i.e. somebody wants to write you a big check, and they do due diligence and say, your patent doesn't protect it. Then you're screwed. So again, attorneys and accountants. You don't want to sit in front of the IRS and say, I've been doing my books the last 5 years, I think I have them right. That's the bad time to find out.
Yeah. Advice is cheap and expensive. You want to get in the middle.
Well, thank you all to our panelists, and thank you for your great questions from the audience.
Thank you, guys. Very nice. Very nice. Nice to see you again, as we see each other often, I think. Yeah.
So thank you again for your time today. We've got a lot more of the day ahead of us. We're going to take a brief networking break. We want you all to get to know each other in the audience. Please come up and talk to the panelists that you've seen so far. We want to encourage you to have that internal conversation. And please enjoy, thanks to Works Lab for the session break that you have. Please enjoy Franny Frank's Coffee Cake, which is a product of a great company at the Innovation Center. Again, talk to each other. We're going to reconvene at 11:40. You're going to hear from Eric Anderson with UMKC on tech transfer. Thank you.
All right. Well, I want to thank you all again for coming. This is exciting for me. Innovation is fun. The ability in America for somebody to build the next best mousetrap, I think is the American dream and what lets us go to the next level. I grew up in Kansas City, so it's fun to come back here and see that innovation is growing and thriving. We have here today with us the founder of US Inventor. And his story itself is amazing. I wanted you to tell your story too. But the way that I met him was up on Capitol Hill, going door to door and telling the story and the path and the hardship of inventors. And he was doing it in an environment that it was needed. And he was doing more work himself than, the highest paid lobbyist that you've read about in the papers. And so it was really exciting. We just had Eric show up, and I had moved him up to this without telling him. So I'm going to ask you over the microphone, are you ready to go? Because I think this is a great spot for you.
All right, so we're going to save my introduction you save that introduction in your head, and we're going to move that to after lunch. What we have here is another step in our innovation process. We were talking earlier about, the hard part about getting tech from the research and development stage and that handover to somebody that you're selling it to, getting that IP in the spot and knowing how that changeover was going to happen. Well, now we're going to talk about tech transfer, and it's a really big part of the innovation ecosystem. It's something that as an entrepreneur, you might have an idea. You might know that it's going to take you $20,000, $30,000, $40,000, $60,000 in R&D to get there, and then another $10,000 or $20,000 to get the patent. Or maybe somebody's already thought about it. As one of our presenters said earlier, we all think that we had the best idea, but the likelihood is somebody else has thought about it too, and you might be able to save a lot of your funding if you first go look at what UMKC has to offer, or NASA has to offer, or other universities. So I'm pleased to introduce and meet him on the podium. We talked by phone, but Eric Anderson from UMKC. He does tech transfer for UMKC. He also works with small inventors on his own time. So I'm sure that he would be happy to answer questions afterwards. But thanks for joining us.
Well, good. It's not quite afternoon, but I'll call it. It's good afternoon. My name is Eric Anderson, and I have a really cool job. I get to receive in the invention disclosures from faculty members and graduate students, and they think they've invented something new. They think they've increased the technology arc. And then I have two major jobs. One, to find out if we can protect it, and two, can we commercialize it, or can we make money on this and have a return to the university? And really, in our current economic times, the answer to both of those should be yes, before we go off and we expend the resources to protect this. This is just to let you know some of the inventive steps that are going on around you. This is an actual patent application by Airbus, and this is how they see the future of air travel, that you're going to be sitting on bar stools. You thought you were packed in by Southwest like cattle. Just wait for it. You will be riding the friendly skies as if you're riding a Bronco Bull, I suppose. Coming soon to a airline near you. So I am a registered patent attorney. So you know you're talking to an attorney. Here's my disclaimer. This presentation does not constitute legal advice. It's not meant as a substitute for legal counseling, and it's intended for educational purposes only. Please seek your own counsel. So I do have the job as the Director of Tech Transfer at UMKC. I've held that just for about a year now, and before that I was at Rolla, so Missouri S&T. So that's primarily an engineering school. And I know here they have a group called the Nerdery. They haven't seen a nerdery. They need to come on down to Rolla. I'll show you a nerdery. But very cool people. Engineers are a lot of fun to be with. So I will kind of reflect on this, and I'll also open it up to the group. I'll talk about whatever you want to talk about. This conversation I usually have with entrepreneurs across Kansas City, and they want to know what IP is. So that's what this slide deck is for. I have another slide deck that I call Mind the Gap that I brought with me today that is really on the problems with university licensing. So I can hurry through this one. If you've already had a discovery of IP or not. So patents, copyrights, trademarks, trade secrets. That is an actual patent. And there is something called a 101 objection, and there's 101, 102, 103. 101 is it patentable subject matter? And it's supposed to have a useful purpose. I've been told by professors this is pretty useful for grad students. That it is a device for kicking one's own buttocks. So you are now in a first-to-file system since 2013 with the AIA. You still have to be the true inventor, and it still has to be statutory, useful, new, or read as novel, and it has to be non-obvious to one skilled in the art. which is at least a mirror test to you, possibly not someone above you, someone skilled in the art. So if you're not a mechanical engineer, you may get compared against mechanical engineers if you're developing something that is mechanical. Okay, you have to file. Still, in the United States, we kept what we call the grace period. And I was at a meeting when, at that point, the Director Kapos of the USPTO announced that they would be keeping the grace period. And the foreign gentlemen in the meeting were very upset because this does not coincide with foreign law. In the United States, after you have disseminated enabling information, in other words, information that would allow someone to actually practice your invention without any further experimentation, you will be given a grace period to file for U.S. rights only of 1 year. Now, the rest of the world is not so kind. Once you have made that enabling dissemination of information, why do I say that? Why do I get all legal on you? Because the word reads as publication, but when I say publication in the university context, it messes people up because they think of peer-reviewed publication. So a dissemination of enabling information. Once you've done that, your foreign rights are pretty much gone. You don't have them anymore. It rests in the public domain. Does that mean I can't start a business around it? No, but it means you cannot exclude others in the marketplace. So your marketplace valuation takes a definite dip. But again, you can file for those U.S. rights. And generally, we think of U.S. as just about 50% of the world market, still to this day. So the U.S. is a very good place to file. Okay. Patents also don't protect objects found in nature, don't protect mathematical formulas, things like that. But they do protect the use in like a process or a system. And it's very important to search the prior art. And one of the things that I like to do is I like to teach people how to search the prior art. I was sent by the university to a program, Land and IP, to learn how to search prior art. And it's amazing to me how many times people in research endeavors have not searched the prior art. It is now becoming something that they are supposed to admit to when you get federal funding as to where the prior art is at this point. But I find many of those searches to be substandard because they didn't find what I find. Now, by the way, you can also pay for prior art searches. I paid anywhere from $250 to $1,500 to $2,500 for prior art searches. And basically, you're paying somebody to search, and it's an hour fee. So you get a letter back saying, for the 5 hours you paid me to search, this is what I found. Okay. You can file pro se, not recommended. Patent counsel have experience. I pay our patent counsel, I don't represent the university, I manage the process for the outside counsel. I pay between $380 and $420 an hour. You should hear me on the phone. Hi, this is Eric. Yes, bye. I'm very fast because the clock's ticking, right? So it can be costly, and this number, the 8 to 10,000, is likely low for the squishy space. I am now in squishy. I am pharma biology. I was in crunchy, which is physical material science. Physical material science probably costs you $8,000 to $10,000 for drafting. This is the attorney's fees, by the way, the vast majority of it. The AIA, when it was passed, American Invents Act, was touted as promoting the small inventor. I don't see it that way because while they may have cut your fee in half with a microentity fee from like $130 to $65, the vast majority of your fees are the cost of counsel that are on the outside. And so throughout this process, you're going to get hit with office actions, you're going to build a case history, you're going to have legal arguments, so expect to spend another $10,000 to $15,000 to go through examination. So that's why I tell people about $20,000 to $25,000. Now, I talk a lot of people out of patents, especially smaller inventors. Why? Because they're just starting their business, they want to file a patent, a lot of them want to file a trademark, but they don't have cash. So this is something they would be borrowing from mom and dad or aunts and uncles as part of the startup of their business. And I just find that there's maybe better ways to spend their money than protecting something. Because again, as you're filing this and you're going through these fees, there's no assurance that you're going to get a patent. And 18 months after you file your patent, the word patent means to lay open. It means to tell everybody what you did. So 18 months after you file the application, the USPTO publishes your application. That's why some people say a US application is a Chinese blueprint, right? Because you have to tell the world. In fact, you still have to tell the world your best mode. And that's before issuance. It takes about 2 to 3 years to get to issuance. So now I've got my patent, so the government's going to protect me. No, it does not. It makes you do it. You have to protect it. You have to go into court and sue people. So if you're suing people for infringement, my friends that prosecute these sort of matters, the retainer fee starts at $500K. And it goes up depending on who we're suing. If we're suing Microsoft, it's going to go up, right? Because Microsoft has a room full of attorneys with nothing better to do but to send you discovery requests. Provisional. You guys have seen those, you probably, some insomniacs in the room, you've been up at 2 in the morning and you see the inventors help and those sort of things. If those people are here, I don't mean to disparage them. But when you see something like $99 to file or something that's a ridiculously low dollar amount, what you're usually talking about is a provisional application. And it's kind of a misnomer. What it means is you are telling the USPTO this is what you know at this point in time, and it's really given a priority date, or what you can think of as a timestamp. You will then need to convert that to a full utility within a year. So that's usually what you're getting when you go to Invent Help and those sort of folks. You're getting a provisional application. By the way, the fees start low, but they talk you up pretty fast. So, but as a university, do we use provisional filings? We sure do. Why? It buys you a year, to answer the question. You can still use the term patent pending. So we take that year and we try to find an active market for it. So if I start approaching the biomedical world, and the biomedical world is giving me a lukewarm feeling, or I don't really think this is going anywhere, then I'm not likely to file the full utility. And I've only just spent the provisional filing fees. And usually a firm for between $500 and $1,500 will file what's called a cover page provisional. And that generally means give me everything you have, we're going to notify the USPTO of it and staple it to the application, and we're going to send it in. This is what we knew at this point in time. Nothing wrong with that, except if it doesn't have a claim set on it, your foreign rights may be in jeopardy. And usually that's why we ask for at least one overarching claim, or if the attorney's going to take the time to actually write up a spec and claims your fee structure is going to change. It's not going to be $500, it's going to be $1,500, it's going to be $3,000, it's going to be $5,000 to file your provisional application. Now the hope would be once you actually then file the full utility that you would somehow come out okay on costs, right? So work with that with your attorney. And a lot of times we'll file what's called a PCT application. That's a Patent Cooperation Treaty. It's recognized by 200 member states. And you must make a decision within 30-month window of which nation you want to file in. You can file in multiple. So for example, we can do a PCT, and then within that 30 months, we can file in the US, we can file in China, and we can file in India. 3 most popular places to file. But it gives you that 30-month window in which to do it. And again, while you're going through this, you're trying to attract a market. You're trying to make sure that you're going to make your money back. The PCT application will be about the same as a U.S. filing cost. It's filed at the U.S. office. There's several offices you could file in, but it's popular to file in the U.S. office. Also, when you do the PCT, within 12 months, you will get back what's called an ISR, International Search Report, and it usually comes with an opinion. It says an examiner searched through it, said, hey, I found this, and it's likely that it's going to be obvious. Oops, what do you do now? But you'll know that at 12 months instead of a 2 to 3 year examination period. And also it's up to you of what weight you give that. Okay, so this gives you an idea of how long that takes. I kind of don't like the idea stage because that looks like, it's just instantaneous. It could be years. This could be someone's life's work. She could have worked on this forever, and then you finally come up with a drug. Well, and then you have your filing. In 18 months, you will have your publication. Now, sometimes that office action occurs within that 18 months. A lot of times it occurs after it. It really depends on the group unit that's receiving it and how backlogged they are. And then about 3 years, they're patent issues. Now, it's only good for 20 years from date of filing. You can have extensions for slowness of the USPTO or for things like seeking FDA approval. But once your patent expires, it goes into the public domain. And again, you lose that exclusionary ability. Can you still have a business around it? Yeah, it's a very lucrative business in some cases, but you can no longer exclude your competition. Okay, so there's that useful requirement. This is an actual issued patent for a watch that tells time in dog years. Issued. So useful is a very low barrier. By the way, where this is coming up now in 101s, there was a Supreme Court case called Alice Corp. And basically, Alice Corp was looking at a hedge fund and some software that really looked at the ability to hold auctions for that. And your Supreme Court said, if this is something that a human could do and we're just interjecting a computer, it probably doesn't rise to the level of patentable subject matter. Really threw the software process community into a tizzy. And we're still in a gray area. We still don't know exactly what this means, and case law will probably flesh that out. But I was just on a webinar a couple of weeks ago, and it really seems that with a little work with the examiner, you can get to patentable subject matter in software process patents. But it's harder than it was, and you probably will get a 101 rejection. 101 rejections do frighten people because that means it wasn't patentable in the first place. We're much more used to 102, which is novelty, or 103, which is obviousness. Is this useful? Are you? Okay, good. We're learning, good. How much more time do I have, Charlie? All right, man. You're here all afternoon. Get out your textbooks. Turn to page. No. Okay, so here was the AIA. Now remember, this was supposed to be something that was supposed to be pro small inventor. It used to be the case that when I was searching prior art, I could stop at the U.S. border for sale or for use inside the United States. That has now been removed in that language, and look at that. The claimed invention was patented, described in a printed publication or in public use, on sale, otherwise available to the public before the effective filing date of the claimed invention. It does not say U.S. So that means you are now compared against the world. So somebody in Russia has a website, and on that video, they're describing something that looks like your invention. You likely have problems, right? Especially if you know about it, then you are ethically required and legally required to report that to the examiner. So, this is why I usually teach grad students and anybody who will listen how to search out the prior art. And it is literally like trying to find a needle in a haystack, and I think sometimes the companies out there try to hide it, but you need to find it and realize what that art is, and if you are non-obvious above it. So, how would I conduct a prior art search using free sources? Now, there are pay sources you can use. When I was in law school back in the 90s, we had Westlaw programs, LexisNexis programs, and these were very expensive. You'd pay like $3,500 per login to use these things, and so your law firm would have one. And it would be one dedicated computer, and you would all, break your license by shifting around and searching in it. But Google has done some amazing work in also machine translating patents. They are machine translating Chinese patents and European patents to read in English. Just amazing stuff. So I usually will first just simply do a Google search. Can I find something like this that someone is making or presenting or using? And I would encourage you to click on that little button when you're doing a search that says images. A lot of people just search through and they look at all the fields and they say, I didn't find anything like this. Well, what's the old saying, a picture says 1,000 words? Well, if you start looking through those images, pretty soon you will find it fairly quickly. That's one of the little tricks that I use, and somebody will say, I searched for this thing for 3 months. How did you find it that fast? I just looked at the images. So then you can look at Google Patents, and that's where Google has taken all those patents and machine translated them for you. Also, it has the applications there, and it has an advanced search capability. It's really cool. It will give you the references to and the citations from, so both ways, both prior in time and post in time. So if you want to know, is somebody near your space, once you have an issued patent, you can find that, right? Because their art will present back to yours. So the other one that I still search on is the European Patent Office. It has over 20 member nation states, including the United States, that are part of their database. And I hate to say it, but whenever I search through a SPOSnet, I come up with different results than when I search through Google Patent, even though Google Patent is supposed to have all that capability to bring that in. So when you go out there and you search, there'll be a USPTO site called the 7 Search Strategy. What it's describing is what's called a classification search. Now, imagine the days before computers, and you have 1 million patents to search through. How would you do it? Well, there was this guy called Dewey and the Dewey Decimal System. Remember that, searching through the library for a book? It's a lot the same way with a patent. And they literally had these things they called shoe boxes that you would search through these letters patents, and they were big, and you would search through them. And up until a few years ago, they would still let you search through those things. They just made you wear this mask because there was so much dust and stuff coming off of these things, you could actually get a disease by searching them. So you can now do a classification search. By the way, there was an international classification, European classification, and a US classification. And no, they do not match. Wouldn't that be awesome if they did? But they don't. The cool thing about Google Patent is it will give you links to those. So you can immediately click on those, and you can also search back through those. So amazing functionality that you now have through Google for free. If Google ever makes that a pay thing, I'm going to cry. It's going to be an awful day. Okay, so remember that game you had as a kid, the Connect 4, with the red and the black little checker markers, and they would drop them in, and you always wanted to get that Connect 4. Well, this is kind of like that game, except when you have the Connect 4, bad things happen. And this is a game that I would like you to play with your technologies. And you can pick whatever you want for your columns or your rows. But basically what you do is you put your features and benefits. And what I usually start with an inventor is I ask them, what's the benefit of your technology? What's it really give to the user? And they'll say something like, it's R factor. So it's ability to stop the thermal dynamics or the thermal flow of temperature, for example. And so you say, okay, so the thermal dynamic is an R factor of 20 or something like that. So that is the benefit, and then the feature that gives it that. So let's say it's a matrix of aerogel. You guys know what aerogel is? Aerogel is really cool. If you go out there and you look at the 10 grand challenges for engineers, and you look at the technologies that are likely to change your life during your lifetime, aerogels is one of those. So aerogels is this really cavernous glass matrix. If you really look into it, it looks like, almost like a cave structure of glass. And that will provide amazing R factors. And they're making blankets out of this stuff. There was one article, there was a guy that made a jacket out of the stuff and went to the South Pole. He had to unzip his jacket because it got too hot. It just traps the heat amazingly. So if you look at that R factor, and that is the feature that provides that benefit. Well, then you go out and you search the prior art. So you're looking for keywords, you're looking for those hits. And so that will be your column structure. And it also can be Google Scholar, so it can be those articles. It can also be websites, so plain old Google or YouTube or something like that. And as you find them, you then put that dot, right, in each piece of prior art. And so you will have a set of features and benefits and a set of prior art. And what you're hoping is you have some major space in there. If you don't, you either likely have an incremental improvement, so you probably don't have a platform technology. Might be okay, might not, but might affect your economics. But if you definitely have some space in there, you might have something that would be a platform technology or something that would totally boost that technology up. Okay, that's patents. I'm not going to talk so much about copyrights. Software folks in the audience, by the way, IP, you can have both, right? You can have patents and you can have copyrights together existing at the same time. They protect against different things. The cool thing about patents is it protects against independent generation. Even if somebody came up with the same thing a week after you did, you can exclude them. Doesn't matter. Now it's first to file. With copyright, it does not protect against independent generation. As long as the person is not copying off of you or not deriving from you, they're okay. And it also has its own nuance. It's so awesome as an attorney to look at and how dynamic this stuff is, because it's job security, right? So this is a monkey selfie. So the question is, who owns the copyright? The monkey took a picture of himself. Can a monkey file for copyright? Well, the answer given was no. So therefore, no one owns the copyright. Now, the gentleman that set up the camera says, no, I own the copyright. I set up the camera. But for me, the monkey could have never taken his picture. So this is still a gray area going in the law of who owns the monkey selfie. I thought the monkey did an awesome job. He even smiled for it and everything. So copyrights, that's what they cover. And getting a copyright is vastly different. Copyrights are granted when they are fixed into permanence. And then you can file for one, and you file for one so you can sue other people, basically. But it costs about $35. And remember, the fees on the other side are vastly different. Happy birthday to you. Just until recently, this was considered under copyright protection. There was a lawsuit, and the lawsuit even went through and showed that they were probably fairly nefarious in how they were presenting themselves as owner of the copyright. And I think they've been demanded to set up, I think it's $20 million trust fund, a fund to pay out for people for damages. But this was a group that owned the copyright to the song that even reportedly sent a cease and desist letter to the Girl Scouts. Stop singing our song. By the way, I was in a restaurant. I was in the Cheesecake Factory the other day, and they sang the good old-fashioned happy birthday. Finally. Don't you hate it when they come out and they clap, clappity, clap, clap, clap? Because they couldn't sing happy birthday. Now they can. So this lasts for 70 years plus the life of the author. So you have all formed copyrights. As you're taking your notes, you're forming copyright. The question is, will anybody pay you for that expression of an idea? Probably not. But that copyright will last to your death and then plus 70 years. So Michael Jackson just passed not too many years ago, so clock's ticking for people to earn money. By the way, when your forefathers had a copyright structure, it was for 14 years plus a possible another 14 years. So 28 years. Little different than life plus 70. There's a little mouse called Mickey that was going to enter the public domain. A company called Disney did not like that and contacted a congressman called Bono to extend the Copyright Act, or what's called the Mickey Mouse Act. By the way, your Supreme Court has said that the term in the Constitution is for a limited period of time, and they have said that something less than infinity is a limited period of time. So I would expect, I believe Mickey Mouse comes up again in 2025, and I would expect again one of your Congress folks to ask for an extension. And it's up to you to enter in and see how they treat that. Trademarks, we could talk on trademarks, and of course trademarks and copyrights can exist together, but a trademark is going to cover the name and the slogan and the imaging that supports that. And if you really want to understand trademark, think of it this way. It is to protect the consumer. It is the likelihood of the consumer being confused. So you can actually have songs of the same title. You can have companies of the same name. And it's okay. As long as the customer would not be confused, you're going to get copyright. So again, there's Harry Potter, and there's a Harry Potter. He's allowed to have his Harry Potter, right? Will the customer be confused? Probably not. And then trade secrets. And the bottom line for trade secrets is it's a trade secret as long as you can keep it a secret, as long as you have the activity to keep it a secret. There's new espionage acts, relatively new, and you will go to jail for trading secrets to other countries, for example. And this also will affect you if you're a faculty member at a university. So this is Burr Science, a little company down in Rolla. Won a landmark intellectual property case for $10 million. By the time they got through the courts, though, the people were long gone back in China with the technology in hand. So be very careful who you're hiring and who you're telling your secrets to, and keep them a secret. Otherwise, they will leave you and you will have nothing. And here's some ways that you can find out more information and my contact information. I'll open it up for questions. First off,
Wait for me to bring you the mic.
By the way, that was a great presentation. I got to tell you that. My question is this. In today's world, why would anyone file for intellectual property protection in China at all?
Great question, and the answer is because my understanding is the Chinese government right now wants its own patents to be respected. They want their own patents to be respected. So if you go out there if you want to see something scary, go to SBOSNet, search whatever technology you want. You will likely find 4 to 5 Chinese applications. They are filing at a phenomenal rate. Now, I don't want to be disparaging, so we can have an offline conversation if you want. But as far as the worth of those filings or how they were filed, but China wants the world to give respect to now its intellectual property. I like to scare the living hell out of engineering students by telling them that there was a Chinese surplus a couple of years ago of $1 trillion. Do you know what they did with it? They formed 3 institutions that they stated they wanted them to be the caliber of MIT. They want to stop the brain drain, which is the Chinese citizen coming to the US and then being nationalized into the US. They want to stop that. They are now released, they're no longer having the 1-child rule, now it's going up to 2 children. But they want to keep their brain power at home. And so I think that it's highly likely in 10 or 20 years, you're going to be discussing whether the US is stealing Chinese technology, not the other way around. So why you would also file in China is you're probably going to have it made there, and you want to be able to use their court system. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to enter into a joint venture with a Chinese company, and they're going to be the ones to sue the infringer in China, not you. But that's why you would do it. Good question. Others?
1 second. This will be our last question.
I don't know what type of protection this would be, but I know there's been a lot of people that have copied a lot of the traditional clothing from the natives in Mexico, and they've patented. The one that I've heard of was somebody in France. They went to Mexico, they loved the type of art, and they literally went home, patented, and now they're suing the natives because they don't want them to reproduce it. Is that even, I mean, I know most likely that it's legal, but how is that even possible? These guys have been doing it for millennia.
Well, okay, a couple of things. One is that probably would not be patent, it would be copyright. Patent may be available for something that's called a design patent, and you can recognize those. They'll have a D in front of it, and it's a very shortened period of time. I think it's 14 years. But it also can have nothing to do with the functionality. It just has to do with the form. In most cases, what I would say is likely a violation of copyright, and I would expect that somewhere like Mexico would be a partner with us in the Berne Convention, and I would have to look. But it might be one of those areas where there's just not enough momentum to go and to demand those rights back. You would lack being a true inventor. You would also lack being a true holder of the copyright because you have copied from someone else, right? And in a way, that would be kind of the reverse piracy. Usually in the United States, what we're worried about is going in, and my wife loves this stuff, right? The knockoffs. We have a family that lives down in Harlingen, Texas. And if you travel 10 minutes, you're in Mexico, and you can buy Gucci purses for $5. You can buy Rolex watches for $5. You can buy children. No, I'm kidding. You can't buy children. But if you have a Rolex watch, it will turn your hand green the next day. They're awesome. But usually that's what we're concerned, right? We're concerned with US companies, US rights. So when someone's stealing from another country, that would likely be up to Mexico to protect itself. And I just don't know if they do or not.
All right, thank you very much.
Sure.
All right, we're going to bring Paul Moranville up here. Again, he founded US Inventor, and he founded it because he was going around Capitol Hill talking about inventors. If you don't know Capitol Hill, it's filled with 28-year-olds that haven't had a job yet, don't have a house. More than likely, they haven't invented anything, but they're hard workers, and they really need to understand sometimes who we are as a group and who we are as a community. And then I met Paul, and we started to work together. And now I get to do the dirty work and slog around the swamps of Capitol Hill, and he gets to meander around the country. And he's been working with inventor groups in Texas and Florida and Indiana and Iowa, all across the country. And so what I wanted Paul to do today was to give us a kind of a state of innovation and what he sees as he moves across the country, and also talk about what an Inventors Club can do for you, and why the Invention Center of Kansas City might be a good resource for you. Thank you, Paul.
So I just found out about 10 minutes ago I was going to be talking, so this is going to be completely off the cuff. So I'm an inventor. I got 9 patents, and I got another 24 pending. My inventions are enterprise middleware software. It controls access to the systems in large companies and governments. I can go into a lot of stuff, but I ended up, it took 7 years to get the first patent because it's software, it's more difficult, it takes longer. I've had patents in that patent office for 14 years. I had hair when I filed those patents. They've been sitting there forever waiting to get approved. The first one took 7 years, and by the time I got it allowed, it was already about a $12 billion market. Then the courts started messing around with the patent system. You can't get an injunction anymore since a case called eBay. They've turned a patent into a quasi-public right. Then the American Invents Act came, and they created procedures to invalidate patents outside of the patent office. Goes right back to the patent office. Costs somebody 20 grand to file one of these actions. It'll cost you 300-400 grand to fight it. And you have a 90-some% chance they're going to invalidate the patent. I had sold one of my patents to an investor, that first set of patents, and I have another 5 different families. In 2011, at the same time of the American Invents Act, the money from that licensing campaign was funding the development of the rest of my patents. I was working with the Purdue Technology Center. In 2013, the effects of the American Invents Act caused my investor to stop enforcing that patent, and that shut off the funding to my company, and my company crashed. I don't know what you all do when the government kills your company, but I hopped in my truck and I drove to Washington, and I got a hotel, and got up in the morning and talked to a cabbie, and I said, take me to the Senate. And the cabbie said, which building? And I said, what, there's more than one? I had no idea. So I said, take me to the first one. And again, I didn't even know I could get in. You just walk through security, and then you can start going into offices. So I went into the first office, and first question they had was, who are you with? And I said, well, man, I'm just an inventor from Indiana. I'm not with anybody. But it's important for you to know what killed my company. And they just said, go talk to your Indiana people. So I did this for a week, and one after another, I got into a couple of them, but largely they were just telling me, you're not with anybody. So I thought, well, I got to be with somebody. So I went home and I bought usinventor.org. I threw up a website. I put it on top of my paperwork, and I went back the next week, and I said, I'm with US Inventor, and they said, go sit down, and I'd get to talk to them. So we got into 67 Senate offices, and ended up killing the Innovation Act, which was another act to follow up on the 2011 American Invents Act that would make it functionally impossible for small inventors to enforce patents. One thing led to another. I met Charlie. We've built now a team of 8,000 people with US Inventor, and I'm I've been called a jerk now by lawyers from big corporations, so it's been effective. Since then, there's two parts to this. One is getting into Capitol Hill. Inventor voices are the loudest voice there. So it's very important for inventors to get involved locally and in Washington. The second piece is since January, I've been trying to gather inventor voices, and I've been going to inventor clubs. And I think I've sat in, probably 24 inventor clubs. Inventor clubs, I had no idea. My stuff is software. Largely, inventor clubs are consumer goods. Some of those things you don't need patents for. You need speed to market. Some of those you absolutely need patents for. Most of them, inventors were like me. When I first had my invention, I was afraid. I didn't want anybody to steal it. So I kind of tried to, only talk to certain people and stuff like that. Some inventor clubs have, I'm sure a lot of people understand that. Some inventor clubs have NDAs. So you come in for the inventor club, they bring in speakers to talk about how to patent stuff or how to market it. How do you decide? So sometimes you're going to build a prototype and you're going to bring that prototype to market. Sometimes you're just going to take your drawings that you make for your provisional patent and go to market with that. You try to find a buyer and then go back and find funding once you have a buyer, and sometimes they'll just license it. Depending on the technology. But the inventor clubs bring in speakers who are experts in many different areas, often related to the, most of the people. For example, the San Diego Inventor Club has a lot of medical devices, and those are much more technical. It's a different way to bring to market than it is if you're doing, some consumer good that you'd see on TV. So they'll bring in speakers, and there are speakers that love to go because they may be a marketing person, and they may take your stuff to market for you. They can generate business that way. They bring in patent attorneys. There's often a patent attorney involved in an inventor club because they generate business with that too. Prototypers and all the rest of it. The most interesting one is the Houston Inventors Club, and they integrate with the community, 53 grade schools, and they have inventor competitions from 3rd grade. And I had this little guy, you guys all know who Billy Mays was? That TV show, Billy Mays, and this little 3rd grader with long brown hair and brown eyes was pitching me a puddle remover. And he had a cone of plastic and a hairdryer in it, and he had a stick that went up and a railroad crossing thing. And he was explaining to me how you put this on the sidewalk and you stop traffic and you turn on the hairdryer and it removes the puddle. But he knew the prior art. He had done a patent search. He had done a competitive analysis. He had other puddle remover products that he showed me. He's 3rd grade. He had an idea of what it would cost to build it and who he would sell it to. And I thought, he was my first kid, and I thought, man, this kid's cool. And then every single one of them was like this. And so inventor clubs also get involved in the community, and particularly that Houston club is really good at it. But I think it's a very good idea to join your local inventor club. Thank you.
All right. Up next, Doug Humphrey. So I met Doug on the first day that I was an entrepreneur. I was a staffer on Capitol Hill to start my career, and then worked for Governor and then a think tank. And I saw that there could be a better way to do things, the way that most of you all have seen that there's a better way to do things. And so I started my own business. And sometimes it's a question of when you start your business. And mine was this email that was going out to about 20,000 potential clients. And that same day, I was sitting at an inventor pitch competition, and I was getting to see people put their ideas in public to other inventors and investors and people that could help make their ideas and dreams into a reality. And one of the guys I met was sitting at a table with Doug, and we got in arguments from politics to cartoons to whatever, and then I started looking into his history a little bit. And it turned out that he was the father of managed hosting. And if you don't know what that is, that's where somebody else hosts your website for you. Before Doug started doing that, to host a website, to put your app up, you'd have to get your own server, get a pipe to the internet, and get somebody to run that, and then you would have to design everything. So it's something that has changed the way that we live. And not only did he not stop there, he has continued to develop ideas and businesses, and through doing that, it's not always been a win, right? Managed hosting was a huge success. He's also had some really big losses. He's also had singles. He's also had doubles. And I think that that's a lesson that helps us all. And so I'm excited to have him here. I'm excited to bring him to Kansas City and hand it over to him. Thank you, Doug.
Find the right button. Can you hear me? Yeah, okay. So yeah, meeting Charlie was interesting because the first time I met him, he was very conservatively dressed. No problem with that, don't get me wrong. But I didn't expect and when we started talking about things, I didn't expect kind of the inventor vibe. So I can generally walk into a room and in 5 minutes find all of my people and hear like all of you guys are my people, which is really amazingly cool. And by my people, I mean, the open-minded sort of questing for figuring things out, the people who operate with entrepreneur vision. Most people are consumers. They've grown up as consumers. To them, the only economic flow is you do something, you get money, use the money to obtain things. And so they're in the consumer model, and so they're your customer. Jumping out of the consumer model for a moment, they're our customer, right? They're the people, or one of the people who's buying our stuff. But those people look at the world with a certain vision. They drive by a strip mall, and what they see in the strip mall is what's in the strip mall to sell them things. Now, entrepreneur vision's a little different. Entrepreneur vision is I drive by the strip mall, I note what's in the strip mall, but not really because I'm looking to spend a lot of money in the strip mall, but because maybe after I drive by 5 strip malls, I realize there are no Starbucks. Now, part of you goes, no coffee shops in 5 strip malls. Maybe there's an opportunity for, a coffee shop. Then you do 10 strip malls and there are no Starbucks, and then you go, Starbucks knows something. But that's sort of your big data model. That's your next level where you're going, yeah, I'm not putting anything here. And I'm not doing it because there's nothing new about the coffee business, right? So I'm not gonna go stick a coffee shop in a place where there's no coffee shop for 10 blocks, because unless I have some sort of secret knowledge, like the fact that somebody's gonna open a headquarters to whatever over here, or that the hipsters are gonna blow through here and get all the homeless out of here, then maybe now the coffee shop is good. Maybe I should tie up a few leases on some stuff secretly, not under my name. The point is, that's kind of entrepreneurial thinking. Now that's a very tactical thing. That's not really inventor thinking. But entrepreneurs see opportunity. They see what's not there because they're looking for the opportunity to fill in the holes. Joe Blow pulls his app out and goes, there's 7 million apps in the store. Look at all the stuff they can do. And if I went through all that stuff, I'd be looking for saying, well, what do I want to do that's not in there? Because that's the opportunity to go invent something, build something new, et cetera. Now, I'm not so much the consumer guy. I'm internet infrastructure kind of person. So, to Charlie's point, back when I started on the internet, it was called the ARPANET, and we were those annoying ARPANET tourist kids who were always tying up the dial-ups. We used to actually have a protocol where when Defense Communications Engineering Center, DCEC, wanted the generals to dial up on an 800 number to get a demo, they would call a bunch of kids in the DC area and say, yo, everybody stay off the damn dial-ups. I've got generals I'm demoing for. And we'd be like, okay, cool, no problem. When can we get on? They'd be like, look, we'll be clear by like 7, 8 p.m. Okay. You know, and that's the DOD coordinating with people who are stealing the federal resources. But, you know, it's pragmatic, it works, it keeps the kids off the phone lines. And, you know, we did things like realize that people want to put stuff on the internet, but they don't want to run a server. So we said, well, hell, we're really good at running servers. We'll run the servers for you. So we were the first guys to get a bunch of servers and then have organizations contract with us to run the server at our facilities and take care of everything for them. So that was good. And I've done a satellite company where we were putting up satellite internet stuff. The biggest data center in the world technically still is one I built in Chicago. This is a 1.35 million square foot data center, which is a whole lot of data center. You should see this place. It's an entire large city block, 9 stories tall, and I've seen it with like 5 cars in the parking lot. It's really pretty weird. It's got parking for like 300 cars, but there'll be like 5 cars. It's not a good employment story, but it generates a whole lot of money for Chicago anyway. You know, and like Charlie said, I've started like 15, I think, and so I've had like 2, I IPO'd one of them. I almost IPO'd one before it sold. The big data centers made a lot of money. And then I've had some singles and doubles, and I had one company lose $150 million worth of VC money. That's always fun. I still see those people at Christmas, you know. I don't know why they invite me to their party, but it's at the Library of Congress, so I'm gonna go. But it is a little uneasy. Sometimes they're like, hi, this is Doug. He lost $150 million of our money. Good to meet you. Perseverance is the key. And the iterative function of, it didn't work, do it again. It didn't work, do it again. Well, but not do it exactly the same, right? I mean, you know, just banging your head on the wall. But there are moments when you do it the same. Okay, here's a good lesson. People say, well, doing the same thing over and over, you know, and expecting a different results is insanity, right? Yes and no. Because you're not doing the same thing over and over if time is running. Because the context in which you're doing it is actually changing. Great example, I ran a business plan in 2010 past some investors who looked at me and said, well, okay, the ante up for this is $1 billion. No, that's fine. I got a phone call 2 weeks ago from one of them that says, can you come on in? I think we want to talk about that thing. Maybe, but the point is, that was 2010, it's 2016. I might have been 6 years too early with that. Entirely possible. It is internet infrastructure, and you know, no one in those intervening 6 years has come up with the idea either, which is actually a bad sign in its own way. If you're the only person who's ever heard of your idea and ever had your idea, that's not always like the best sign. You think it's the best sign? In the United States alone, there are 350 million brains, roughly. In the world, it's in the billions. If you really think you're the only person to have ever had this thought, you might be, but the odds are seriously against it. But you can be the first person to ever have the thought and have the hustle to get off your ass and go do it. And that is generally the differentiator. I know inventors who are lazy and they call themselves inventors. And that's fine. I think that they're besmirching the word inventor a little bit there, but you know. They're never gonna make it. Because they go, well, look, I've got this thing. The world should come to me. I'm like, I don't know where you live, but the world doesn't come to me. And dude, I have track record, and the world still doesn't come to me. I still have to go to them. I still have to go suck up for money. I have 3 suits. They're very nice suits. They're really nice suits. My wife is like $2,000 fucking for a suit. And I said, honey, Savile Row, baby, bespoke, you know, it's nice. I wear it for weddings, funerals, and sucking up for money. That's when you gotta put on the armor, and you gotta do it. But perseverance is gigantic, you know? Let's go back to entrepreneur vision for a moment. If you haven't wandered, if in your normal wandering around today, you don't see 3 things that somebody should go do, you're not trying, man. Every time you look around, you're like, God, that light's weird. Maybe they should do it a different way. Now, I'm not an expert in lighting, but I have enough knowledge to know that that is bothering me and it should be done differently. Now, I'm not going to go chase that down because I don't have all the other requisites for what, is that really a good idea? Do I have to do the due diligence and the research and figure out lighting systems and all of this stuff? But I'm noticing as part of my daily thing that, this is something that needs to get improved. This is something that's not right, or this could be improved in some way. That's entrepreneur vision. I mean, your stuff's in software. Bravo. You're not going to do a better door handle, but you're sure going to notice the first time you use a door handle, you go, man, that sucks. Okay, that's just bad design. Or you do something and it catches your cuff on the way through, and you're like, come on, really? You're going to notice as you go through your daily world, many, many things that can be improved. And you're going to say to yourself, someone should fix that. That is the sign of an active mind. Don't get distracted by it, though. Don't immediately go, oh, shiny, and, run, now I'm doing the research on doorknobs, and then, oh, shiny, No, but it's the sign that you're of the agile entrepreneur brain, You're looking for the opportunity. When you walk into a room, and this isn't always, every once in a while you walk into a room and you don't want to talk to anybody, I want to go get this done, I want to get out of here, I don't want to talk to anybody, But if you find yourself doing that too much, you're losing opportunity. Every room of people you walk into, someone in there is worthwhile. Someone in there has got something. Someone in there is worth talking to. Someone in there is someone you're going to need somewhere down the road. And I've got a Rolodex and it's actually a Rolodex too. I gotta work on that. It's actually a Rolodex, but I have the electronic stuff now too, but I was privileged once. I'm sitting in an office talking about something, and I'm sitting with two venture capitalists, Peter Barris, who's the head of New Enterprise Associates, and Frank Bonzel, who's one of the founders of NEA. And we're sitting there in Frank's office, and we're talking about something. Frank has 5, the big industrial strength Rolos? They're like this big, gray, he has 5 of them. And Peter has one of the new electronic organizer things, And these guys are so competitive that we're like, Doug needs to go talk to this guy. And you got his number? Or Peter looks at me and says, do you have so-and-so's number? And I said, no, I don't. And I look at Peter. Peter looks at Frank. These guys are old, Frank looks at Peter and they're like, who can get the number first? And Frank's like, do the Rolodexes and all. Hilariously funny to watch the technologies against each other. The competitive spirit is good. The constant, you guys are in an interesting position. Don't obsess on your secrecy, Now, I do this, right now I work for University of Maryland. I help out. I work for Office of Technology Commercialization, which fundamentally is exactly what that guy does at UKC, right? It's the same. I work for his equivalent at UKC. I help out entrepreneurs internally to the university system. People with intellectual property come in. I have certain areas where I have some expertise. We work with that. And we also just give some general advice on, is this an interesting thing? Is it incremental? Is it likely that it could be a standalone company? Or is it a platform that you can get a bunch of things built on? The whole evaluation thing. One of the things is, people go, okay, I've got an idea. I want everyone to sign an NDA before, I'll ever expose it. There are moments, and you mentioned the inventors clubs. That might be a time when you actually really want to worry about Joe or Jane stealing your thing. And I'm not impugning them, but I'm just saying you haven't developed it past like a very early stage at that moment. So maybe, it's so embryonic that the guy next to you could actually go, ooh, that's interesting, and grab that, and maybe he has better resources or something. There's a reason why, the venture capital guys don't sign NDAs, I have close friends who want to show me their stuff, but I don't do NDAs. Oh, why don't you do an NDA? Dude, if I did an NDA for everybody who ever tells me anything, I'd have no idea what I could ever even talk about, I'd probably be violating NDAs in my sleep. But the thing to remember is, when you get to the point where you've really got your stuff developed somewhat, and you're talking to money people, they don't want to steal your idea. If they like that idea, they want you to do that idea. And you might go, well, but they'll replace me. Dude, once you're on that funded train, they're going to replace you anyway. I have bad news, okay? I mean, when my companies, when we filed to go public, you know, the first thing they are is like, you know, hey, Doug, who do you want replacing you as CEO? And I'm like, oh, I hope you're on the search. Let's find somebody good, you know? Because I don't want to be a public company CEO. You're out of your mind. There's nobody on the planet worse suited to be a public company CEO than me. I had to write the risk section of an S1 once. I'm laughing. It's just like, oh my God, you know? Just putting down everything that could possibly go wrong. And at some point, the lawyers are like, we've got enough. We've got enough, you know, stop, stop. You know, this could destroy the planet. Let me show you how. And they're like, no, no, that doesn't, no. Too much detail, don't need to be there. You know, so you got to know something. And I know this is an interesting thing, and a lot of people don't think this through. The success of your idea is going to take you into uncomfortable places. And oftentimes, people who have a really good idea sabotage their own stuff because they don't want to go into the places where that company is going to take them, where the development of their company, the success of their idea is going to take them. I know that sounds counterintuitive. Human beings are screwy things. And if you walk into the room and you don't want to talk to anybody in the room, and I told you that in order to make your something a success, you have to literally go talk to everybody in the room. There's some people like, well, I'm not going to do that. Okay? I mean, it's your idea, it's your world. But I'm telling you that, you know, if you walk in, you're going to have to talk to all of these people. And you have to go places that you are not comfortable going. You're going to have to deal with realities. You know, if you get investors, investors want something for their money. Now, fortunately, in the US, it'll just come in the way of equity, and it doesn't have to be the firstborn male child or anything. But, you know, you're gonna, in order to follow this through, a great invention taken all the way is a journey. And it's a journey of growth. And if you're not able to do it, if you're not able to grow with the idea, with the opportunity, you may very well find that what you're doing is you're refusing to do the things that you actually have to go do to make this work. It's an interesting problem to have, but I've run into it, where people don't want, I have to maintain total control over everything. Okay, great, but you know, you put that caveat down and guess what? You know, investors walk, because investors have to protect their stuff. I was in an investment thing, one of my first venture rounds closed in one of my first companies, $6 million A round, you know, my lawyer, by the way, never hire a litigator to be your lawyer in a venture world. I discovered that after this. But my lawyer's a litigator. She comes to me and she looks at it, she goes, you can't sign this. I mean, we're actually at the signing. And I said, what do you mean I can't sign it? She's like, have you read it? Your anti-competes, I mean, it's onerous, it's insane. And I said, I don't understand your objection. She said, you're being screwed. I looked at her and I said, I am here to be screwed. I want to be screwed. She's looking at me. I said, they're putting $6 million on the table, $3 million of which is already spent. Who's getting screwed? We're all getting screwed. That's the way it is. So something to look forward to when you're doing your inventing is getting screwed. But your reward for getting screwed may be, you know, 30 million bucks, I mean, or something. So, you know, I'm just saying it's a long road, it's a crazy road. Check your motives, check why you're acting the way you are. If Joe Blow comes to you and says this and this, and you don't react well to that, well, you know, what's that all about? Why are you doing this? Because you may be very uncomfortable. Your personal discomfort may stop you from, you know, moving forward with stuff the way you should. Don't worry, you can find lots of reasons to fool yourself into thinking you're doing the right idea. That's why it's important to have close counselors. You need to find people who know you and will look at you and say, you are being a jerk. Stop this right now. Sometimes your wife does this. I have a wife who speaks her mind, and you know, she's looked at me on deals and said, that's crazy. And I go back and think about it for a while. Yeah, maybe a little crazy, you know. But you have to find people who you trust, who will speak truth to power, and who value helping you more than they value how much of the shares they're going to get in the company or whatever the hell it is. And, you know, So you do that. Go back to iteration, because iteration, I think, is the real key here. Keep on slamming on it, keep on trying on it. If that doesn't work, try something else. If that doesn't work, try something else. You know, this isn't easy. As one of the VC guys put it, he said, of course it's not easy. If it was easy, we wouldn't hire you to do it. You know, which is a compliment and a little backhanded all at once, you know. None of this is easy. So you guys who are inventors, you guys who are entrepreneurs, are actually kind of out on the almost crazy edge of society a little bit. That's okay, enjoy it. It's more fun here, really. The steady paycheck is way overrated. No, just joking. Let's Q&A. Charlie, question and answer. Who has any questions about anything? I'll try. No sports things, though. I live in Washington, D.C., Redskins fan, so don't bring it up. I'm sorry. Who did we foist RG3 off to? I don't remember. Oh, that was Cleveland, right? You know, never mind.
I know one question that I want to start while I'm walking to a question. I know that there was a time that your first company hinged on an air conditioning issue.
Yep, that's good. Yep.
But when you talk about, I mean, because the air conditioning issue is important.
No, but it's about funding, really, and it's about friends, and it's about, you know.
Friends and celebration.
You know, we were really growing. We had dial-up internet going. We had lots of customers. We didn't even have money to make payroll usually. I mean, you know, I still had my day job for a Fortune 500 company. That's how we made payroll. You know, and the air conditioning in the computer room went out. And, you know, we were done. I mean, nobody had a nickel to rub together. It was that bad. And my girlfriend at the time goes, I have a Sears card. And we're all like, oh yeah. So we drive to Sears and literally we're on the phone once in a while going, how hot is the computer? I mean, you know, we don't want to turn it off. We have customers running, you know, temperature is climbing, but Sears is close. We buy the biggest honking window air conditioner you can find in Sears, get back, slap it in, have to actually knock some bricks out of the wall, doing it, going, well, it's a junky building anyway, and you know, we'll have to talk to the landlord about that. And we shove this thing and pound it in, and you know, it's getting pretty hot in there, and then the temperature's coming down and coming down and coming down and coming down. I married that woman, I have 2 kids with her. She's fantastic. So, you know. So, you know, yeah, the Sears card at the right moment, there's nothing better. There it was.
Doug, thank you for speaking today.
Sure.
You're fascinating. I'm wondering, do you do private consulting?
I will, yeah. I mean, you know, anything I can do to help people, I do. You know, you can get my email address, you know, just ask me questions on email, you know, it's fine. I don't do NDAs, you know, but then do you understand that 99% of everything that I can tell you has nothing to do with whatever your secret sauce is, you know? I mean, I don't know. If you go, no, but I've got this dude, I don't understand that. I'm a physicist by like background. I get physics, but I'm not a chemist, so, you know. But it doesn't matter what your product is. The markets work in certain ways. Funding works in certain ways. People work in certain ways. You should have I mean, you know, it's all the basics. You should have boards, you get a board of advisors, you should have, here's how you do your stock world, you do 83B, clawbacks, you don't, you know, you never start a company with 2 people and they have 50% each. That doesn't work. I once had guys come in, I said, you guys have settled, right? Oh yeah, 60-40, no problem. 3 meetings in, I finally figured out that both of them think they have 60. And I said, okay, you 2 out in the hall right now, you got 5 minutes. Come back in and tell me you got this sorted or you are banished forever. That's it. And you know, they finally figured it out. But they're like, okay, we got it worked out. I said, what was it? They're like, oh. I said, it's not worked out if you don't tell me, you know. But yeah, sure, you know. Yeah, good.
What are your thoughts on the angle of developing an idea to prototype stage, proof of concept, and then simply offloading it to somebody else? Sell the idea, license it, do something, but forget financing, forget raising capital.
Oh no, I think it's a completely valid track to follow, you know. It will have its own pluses and minuses. I mean, the pluses are that if you're an inventor guy who's inventing things, I mean, we face that in the intellectual property side over in the universities, actually, a lot. You may not think that, but you know, there's a parallel. In the university world, you have a lot of federally funded research, but it only goes so far in terms of development. There's this gap, and it gets to about here, and all the guys you would like to license it to really want to pick it up right about here and move forward. It's usually not ready for prime time. So you either have to convince one of the commercial guys, biosciences guys or whoever, to come in earlier and pick this up. And it's much earlier than they want, because they're kind of like, well, it's still kind of really basic research. I mean, in theory, they'd like to just get a product they market, but they know they got to actually productize. But a lot of them don't really want to pick up 80% done research, you know, and try and lift it to that 100% done thing where now it can be productized. So you're looking for a weird kind of partnership to fill in the gap. I mean, that's a weird company, you know? And you may pick up some funding from like the state, you might pick up some, or one of the big companies might say, well, look, we'll step into there, but we need a partner on that to kind of, that's a weird kind of gap. Now if you can bring it to fruition to the point where it's product, or really, really, you know, productizable, you know, there's no reason why you can't package that up and if you can find the right company, you know, to say, look, you know, we could take that and run with that. I think a lot of toys and a lot of consumer stuff works that way. I'm not so sure that that's going to work for all technologies and stuff. I don't know, but you know, that's a totally valid way to do business. It really is. You do have sort of an issue of, so if I'm going to sell you a secret, selling a secret is always a hard thing to do, because you say, well, what am I buying? So, well, I can't tell you what you're buying. I can describe what you're buying, but I can't tell you the secret. Well, you know, selling you a secret is tough. Selling you a secret for a product is tough. You know, but if you have a demonstrable prototype-ish thing, then that might be enough, you know? I mean, if you had something that does encryption, you could hand them some encrypted stuff and you could say, here, go try and break it. Now that's an actual totally valid thing, because you don't want to tell them how it was done, you know, because you want to say, well, if you think that you can do the attacks on it, then here's how you do it. You go for it. But no, that's a totally valid path, I think. Yeah. Oh, come on, you guys can do better than this. You know, go.
Couple of things. You mentioned speed to market as opposed to patenting. So if you could expand on that a little bit.
Speed to market, you know, this is the best way to describe this is if you're the guy running faster than anybody else, they're just never going to catch up with you. You know, there's a sort of thought of that running at 80 miles an hour gets you speeding tickets, but if you're managing 120, you don't get the speeding tickets so much, you know, because it's just boom, gone. Now, of course, outrunning radio is difficult, so, you know, your mileage may vary. You know, depending on what you're selling and what the market is, you know, trade secret and just going, how do I put this? Intellectual property is all very important, but you don't want to wait for it. I mean, you know, the advantage, look around you, you know, what advantage do we have? We're all ninja single combat warriors. We're fast, stealthy, quick. We're not powerful. We're up against armies. Armies are slow, powerful, loaded with resources. We are small, nimble, well, maybe not small, but you know, comparatively we are small, nimble, and hopefully smarter about the subject matter. If you're in the right area, you know, ninja it. Guerrilla marketing, ninja, go pick yourself up your big customers or whatever it is, you know, and just move faster, smarter than everyone else does. And at some point, now put on the baseball cap of being a big company, I look down and I see this thing happening, and they're going like hell. And they're getting traction and success. Do I build a competitor, or do I just go buy those guys? And I think we know that in our world, you go buy those guys. I mean, you know, it's like are you the first guy through the door? Are you the second guy into the door? Are you the third guy trying to get into the door? The first guy, always an advantage. You're the first guy through the door. Second guy, there's always room for number two, okay? Literally, there's no such thing as a market where there's only one guy. There's always room for the duopoly. There's always room in the doorway for number 2. Third guy to the door, though, the doorway's getting kind of crowded. There are already 2 guys in the door. Third guy to the door, second guy to the door never buys number 1 because number 2 is easily had. But the third guy to the door considers buying the number 1 position because he's now going to be the third guy through the door. You know, that's good, but, you know, a lot more risk. But how much does it cost to just be number 1, right? Snap your fingers and now you're number 1. You can do it. And the second guy through the door very seldom buys number 1 because he's the second guy in the door. So why would you buy number 1? You're number 2, you know, it's a good position. Number 4, if he wants to play, has to buy number 1 or number 3, maybe 2, I don't know. So, you know, there's value to just being faster, more nimble, etc. Admittedly, if you get in, that's one of the power of apps, right? I mean, you know, you turn up an app and it turns out to be the hot app and all of a sudden your distribution is easy and bang, word of mouth goes viral, instant boom, you know? You know, you used to have to be SAP to write a software program. You used to have to be a gigantic software company to get the distribution, to write a bunch of code so everybody could install it, and you could have engineers helping everyone do installs. And nowadays people go tap, 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 pause, installed, bang, you know, boom. Stunning, absolutely stunning. So, you know, the days today, the technology, the internet, and all this stuff favors the small guy running fast. But I always look at it this way. Intellectual property should be irrelevant to what you're doing, but it's landmines that you're leaving behind you. And people will trip on those landmines when they come after you, and they explode sometimes, and sometimes they don't. A landmine with an issued patent is a world full of mines with big signs that say, here's a landmine, and describe how it works. A landmine full of patent pending is sort of kind of like, there are landmines in here somewhere, and no, we're not going to tell you what they are, and you can step on them and get blown up retroactively 24 months later. But, you know, don't count on all of the intellectual property and go, well, I can't move forward with my thing because I don't have my patent. That's what the PPA is for. That's for drop the $100, file your pre-patent, keep on moving, you know. Keep that thing fresh if you can, if you haven't violated the, you know, the rules. If you're still, we were talking about how, you know, if you get 6 months down on a PPA and you made some improvements or whatever, you can always just go refile the PPA. As long as you're still qualified to do that, you haven't actually gone and, you know, published and done a bunch of stuff. That's our problem in the academia world. In academia, it's publish or perish, right? Which is 180 degrees out from where you would want it to be in the intellectual property kind of world, because everyone's always coming to you with great things and going, oh yeah, look, we talked about it at this conference and we did, you know, and it's been in the proceedings of the, and you're kind of like, oh God, great, you know. Good. Come on, you got to
hands for questions, but to me. But while we're waiting on questions, Doug, can you talk about a lot of us wear on our inventor hats, but can you talk about kind of your hat system and why?
Well, inventor is basically, you know, we call it the rule or the law of baseball caps. When you're a one-man show, it's very hard to think clearly about things it's very hard to just think clearly. So you've got a baseball cap called inventor. And maybe if you have a company, you have one called CEO, you have one called founder, you have one called investor, one called, you know, dad sometimes. And, you know, what you need to do once in a while is put on the baseball cap and then go think about that from that perspective. Because as a one-man show, one of your challenges is that you're actually emulating multiple people, or at least multiple positions, multiple angles of thought. Yeah. And, you know, what happens is, if somebody said, look, I want to buy your company for $500,000, you know, you're going to be conflicted. And the way you sort that out is the baseball caps. You literally go, okay, look, I'm CEO today. I'm running a company. That's all. It's my only consideration. What does this $500 million offer mean to me? Or this offer to merge, what does this mean to me? Or hiring this guy or making this commitment, what does that mean to me? Then you put on the investor cap at somebody and go, look, screw the company. This is me. I'm an investor here. And that's what all my other investors are going to think about it. What does it mean as an investment? Do you take this exit? Do you not take this exit? Do you make this investment? What's the risk? You do this with your hats, and you say, you know, I'm the founder. Well, I just said CEO and founder. That's the same thing. Oh no, you know, not at all. You know, the founder cares about, you know, the team, you know, the co-founders. These guys are like family to me, you know. I have an entire class I teach on how to fire your best friend, okay? And that's, you gotta fire your best friend because you hired him because you thought that he was gonna be really good for your thing, and you know, he's doing nothing but screwing up. And he's got a big vesting period coming, and if I make this decision today, then he walks away with 12% of the company, and if I wait until next Thursday, he walks away with like 17% of the company, okay? So, you know, when should you be making this decision? You should be making this decision now, so that you only lose 12% of the company. Oh, but he's my best buddy, I can't do this. Okay, well, hold on, okay. Friend hat. Oh, he's my best buddy, I can't do this. Okay, hold on, CEO hat. Dude's not cooperating, not contributing at all, and he's gonna take away another 4% of my damn company that I could use to, in the option pool to go hire some more people, okay? Investor hat. The dude is of no value and he's diluting my shares. What the hell, you know? You need to go through this, but I think the lesson is, if you don't separate this stuff out in your head and come up with a way to really separate it out and think about it, it becomes increasingly impossible to make good decisions because you're actually internally conflicted, right? The founder guy doesn't want to, or the friend doesn't want to fire his best friend. The investor doesn't want to get diluted by this. La 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 la. You know, the founder guy might say, if I shoot this guy, are these two other guys who are very valuable to me, are they going to walk with him because they like him more than me? You know, what do the investor relations hat? What the hell am I going to say to my 4 investors when I shoot my head developer? You know, I better come up with something.
So, Doug, we had a company here in Kansas City sell to Ant Financial, which is Alibaba,
right?
Chinese. It's called iVerify. And I went to the investors meeting, and it was Mid-America Investors, an angel group, and they had been part of 4 rounds of funding, 1 7x, 2 5x, 3 3x, and 4 1.5x.
That's not going in the right direction.
Well, it's time, you know, the earlier ones. So I was curious if you could tell us your experiences in investing, and then have you been the investor?
Oh yeah.
And
I used to have a lot more money than I have today. I'll tell you that. You know, okay, so you're the investor, you know? You know, okay, being an angel investor, you know, I don't recommend it. It's really tough. Most of us who make a lot of money in something have an overinflated sense of how good we are at it, or well, I should rephrase, at stuff. Just because you manage to do this within your kind of narrow lane of what you do, you know, doesn't mean you're going to be able to turn around that real estate company over there. Oh, I'm a great businessman. No. You're in an area where you have some fairly deep expertise and you've got some good instincts. You might be able to give them some good advice, but a lot of us invest in stuff that we really have no business investing in. And, you know, the gods punish us appropriately by, you know, screwing us. So, you know, when you are an investor in a company, you know, it depends on what stage you get in and things like that. What I actually did was I invested in a couple of VC funds now, and I just kind of, you know, I'm an LP and I just let that ride, and, you know, they have the headaches, and, you know, I hope I make some money on the deal. You know, I've done this. I've sat on boards. I mean, if you're really early stage, you know, I would probably never invest early stage in a company where either I'm not on the board or I know someone really well who's on the board. Because early stage companies can just go off the rails for just the dumbest reasons. That's why the law of the baseball hats is so important, you know. Give the new entrepreneur tools to help them make good decisions. Because don't assume that they're gonna make good decisions. They've probably never done this before. They've never been in this situation before. We're all human. We're all messed up. And so, you know, You need to give them tools. So an advisory board is a great thing. When people say, I'll be on your board, you have to be very careful, right? I mean, most small companies don't have D&O insurance for directors and officers. But an advisory board is a great thing. Find some sharp guys who have experience and have done this stuff before. Get them to be on your advisory board, give them some stock options, and say, guys, listen, truth to power here. When I screw up, tell me. If you don't like the way something's going, bonk me in the head and tell me, because, and as an entrepreneur, okay, this is the most important lesson, and once you start to have success in anything, you have to be able to wrap your ego up in a box and put it up on the shelf. You need to be able to take it down and, like Tony Stark's power suit, put it on for certain meetings and certain things. Because there are times when you need to walk into the room and be the biggest, baddest ego in the room. In a room that's got some badass egos. There are moments. There are other moments where you have to have no ego at all, and just sit there and let it work. And if you let your ego pop into the middle of it, you're doing nothing but total the situation. You're gonna screw it up. And you need to be able to tell when that happens. That's hard to do. I know some guys who have literally had pretty successful trajectories going and have literally crashed and burned because they could not get their egos under control enough to have 3 meetings with the right people, smooth the stuff over, and make the world work. And instead they marched out, hopped in their Ferrari or whatever the hell ego machine they had, and over everybody and blew it all up. And they blew it up over ego. They just blew it up because they could not accept the situation that was happening, or they couldn't deal with a certain group of people, or they couldn't bring together the pieces. If you're CEO, you're a leader, and you're about building teams, and you're about not going, these 4 people, that's what I don't like about him, and I don't like about him, and I don't like about her, and I don't like about her. And instead, looking at the 4 of you and me and going, okay, hey, it's the Poseidon, and it's upside down, the water's coming in, but we're gonna get out of this. It's okay. What do you do? What are you good at? Let's put this together and go, find out the 3 things that we need and always have the radar up. I am always recruiting. Always recruiting. I don't even have anything I'm recruiting for, and I'm recruiting, which is really frustrating because you find this really good guy or this really good girl, you're like, and then I call all my friends, I say, she needs a job. He needs a job, and I find him something because my famous one is walking into the Starbucks in Laurel, when I had the satellite company, and we were operating globally, right? A lot of languages. And it's a barista land, and the baristas are all making their stuff, they're all fine. I'm chatting, There's one of them that stands out. I'm like, talking with her a little bit. Next time I come in, she's still there, talking with her a little bit. I call my head of operations, and I say, Stacy, you gotta talk to this person. She's like, what, another Starbucks girlfriend? I'm just laughing, because I've hired 2 other people out of Starbucks. One of them was a guy, I'll have you know. And I go, yeah, sort of, I get a phone call a week later. Holy crap, where'd you find her? Okay, rhetorical question, I know where you found her. Anyway, speaks 5 languages. What the hell is she doing behind a barista machine, right? When she retired, she was running customer service for AOL. So, after our company. You look for people, keep your radar up, look for the people and go, wow, I can teach, it's like sales magic. I can't teach you how to sell. I can tell you about stuff, but you gotta be able to sell. But when you find someone with sales magic, get their name, get their number, put it in your pocket, keep in touch with them, because someday you'll be hiring salespeople. And then you'll be like, oh, I got the guy, I got the girl, sales magic. When you find them, I can't teach that stuff. Right. Yeah, no.
Continuing with the hat analogy, I know you kind of went down this road now talking about staffing, but as you wear all those different hats, can you talk about taking a hat off?
Taking the hat off.
As a CFO and handing it to somebody else and how that process works.
So the good news is growing a company is a hell of a lot more fun than shrinking a company, okay? I mean, I can tell you that, I fired 200 people in one day once, it's not fun. The taking off of the hats is important. So yeah, the hats serve 2 functions. One is the wear one at a time and clarify your thought. The other is, when we start the company, I'm it. It's just me. I got 37 hats on, Oh, Doug, the bathroom's dirty. Okay, Doug, I'll get on that immediately. What the hell? Give me a mop. I got to go. But then we start to have enough budget to maybe hire someone else, right? So who are we looking for? You got to think about this carefully, because it's like a one-cylinder engine that's now going to become a two-cylinder engine. Yay, getting tired of being the one cylinder. But you really want to select that second cylinder carefully, because you want it to take as much load off of you as you can. So your next person might be a specialist in something, that you don't like doing, but you have to be very careful. You have to think about your motives. That's why running it by your advisors helps a little bit, because maybe I just hate doing the bookkeeping part. But maybe my business really needs me to keep doing the bookkeeping part because I desperately need a customer service person. Could be it, right? How do I make that decision? Personally, I really hate being in QuickBooks or whatever the hell it is. But it's better for me to keep doing that because my business is suffering because I don't actually have somebody doing full-time customer support. Okay, maybe I have to defer my, the knife is in my arm called I'm in QuickBooks. Maybe I have to leave the knife in my arm and I have to go hire somebody to do this, And so the hiring of people is the distribution of hats a little bit. Also, let's say you are a perfect specialist at this thing and you are a generalist at these things, It could very well be that I need you as the generalist to be my number two. Simply because I have 25 hats on, I really can if I can lay like 5 of those off on you, maybe my world will work a little better. And maybe I need to remember you because maybe the 3rd or 4th or 5th hire, I'm now going to get to the point where I can actually go hire a bullet strike, a spear, a chunk right into a problem and just solve it. But it's someone who's so expert in that world that you're like, I don't do bathrooms and I don't do QuickBooks. That's all there is to it. But I do my job, Generalists start companies and generalists are very useful. It's funny, somebody said to me, go talk to starting companies to this group of MBAs. And I almost said, MBAs don't start companies. We guys who start companies hire MBAs. But I was like trying to be nice. So, I didn't say it to them. And I went and I talked to them. They were very nice people. And not one of those people in that room is going to start a company. It's just not happening. They can't. They got an MBA. Now they owe $180,000 to somebody. Come on, you can come up with something. Or your own horror stories. Come on.
Either one last question, or Doug, can you finish up with this? And that's the idea of having the invention and having the idea, and then turning the idea over to everybody else. You've hit on this a couple of different ways. I just think it's the hardest thing. I think that when I talk to inventors, and it's a really hard thing for me.
It's hard for everybody. When you first have the idea, all you have is the idea, And if you never had a win, then it's your meal ticket, It's like finding the Willy Wonka golden ticket. You're like, I think this is it. And, the problem is that you never want to tell anybody else, because you're scared, Someone's going to rip me off. Somebody's going to steal my stuff. Somebody's going to, be harsh and critical of my stuff, right? I think that this is the huge win, but they're not going to think it's the huge win. And trust me, they won't think it's, It's really hard to do that. I recognize that. It's hard it's like being a total introvert and suddenly realizing that you have to bust out into society and you have to fake being an extrovert, It's hard to do. But you got to realize that an idea is just an idea. And it does nobody any good when it's just in your head, So if that idea is going to keep you warm and fuzzy the rest of your life, just in your head, no one else is going to know. And ideas can do that, but they're not usually entrepreneurial ideas. They're, other concepts. You're going to have to take the step out. And, it's tough. You don't know who to trust. I recognize that it's a threshold issue. It's a boundary issue. You don't really know how to go about it. every time you try to find out about how to go about it, everybody gives you fuzzy answers and they never match up. Your usual logic is I'll ask 10 people and whatever the common story is what I'll do. And if there's no common story, that has not helped, you know? Now you're like, I'm never coming out of my room, you know? So it's you know, it's difficult to do. You know, and to a large extent, I would say this. If you're gonna have an earth-shaking idea, you are probably actually going to have several earth-shaking ideas. You should never be in a mode where you say, this is my fantastic idea and I'm never gonna have another one. I don't buy it for a moment. The brain that produces one usually produces more than one. That's what I said about entrepreneur vision, how you go about. So when I was a kid, I went through this period of time where I never talked to anybody. I was a total introvert, which you can tell I am now, right? And I practice. So I got a new assistant a year ago, and she's like, why do you talk to strangers? I said, because if you let the wound heal up, it won't work anymore. So I walk up to total strangers and say, hey, nice day, huh? How you doing? You know, because it's easier to just keep quiet and not say anything. But I interface because you always have to interface, because if you don't interface, then it's just you. And it's the same thing with your idea. If you just let that idea sit there in your head, it's not going anywhere. So do all the things that you can do on your own. One of the things that's great about the provisional patent is it's a beautiful little process to go through to help you document up your thing, you know? Oh, I should say, I'm a big fan, by the way. You know, a lot of other people won't be, you know. I'm a huge fan of what I call the whiteout patent. While you're doing your patent research, and you're doing your due diligence on prior art, be searching patents for what is the patent that I can find that looks the most like I think my patent will look like. I was saying before, if I was coming up with an intermittent timing, something blah, 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 it might lead me to the patent on windshield wipers, right? You know, intermittent windshield wiper, or whatever, you know? Find something that looks a lot like your patent. Think it might do. Because remember something, you know, when you go for like documents that are the formation of a company, it's all boilerplate. Oh, but my company is special. No, your company is not special. It's all boilerplate. Go online, it's all boilerplate. Patents are 80% boilerplate, 80% boilerplate structure. Now, this isn't to say you're gonna have the best patent in the world. I'm not saying, oh, who needs patent lawyers? I'm not saying that at all. I have patents. I've run through a lot of patents. I've done a lot of corporate patent stuff, you know? I mean, you know, but as an exercise to trying to figure out your stuff, what can I do sitting in front of a terminal? Terminal, there's a quaint term. What can I do sitting, you know, terminal? Well, if you have enough RAM in your terminal, that's a quaint term. You know, what can you do sitting in your room? Oh, by the way, don't use Google for this, but anyway. DuckDuckGo is good. There are a couple of other search engines that don't instantly and automatically report all of your searches to people who are paying to see all of the searches that go through. I'm just saying, you know, yeah. This will make everyone feel nice and comfortable. Everything you've ever typed into a Google screen is available on a marketplace for a price. So, but there are places like DuckDuckGo and other things that you can go do some wide-ranging searches on the net. Oh yeah, and by the way, the results won't be as pretty as they are coming out of Google either. You'll have to work. You know, write your patent, write your PPA, write your RPA. You know, go do it. Go find the patent that you think is the closest enough to distribute in terms of structure, and then start doing the whiteout substitute. Say, well, this sentence says this about this element. Well, yeah, in my world, that's an equivalent here, you know, and then read it and go, you know, how does that look? Might look like crap. You might hand it to a professional, it's like, oh, you got this all wrong. But actually, you probably won't have it all wrong because the structure will probably be there. You'll have claims, you'll have the overarching stuff, and it will give you something to play with. And it puts your mind into the mode of documenting your idea. Because your idea is just this thing in your head. Same goes for business plan. Oh, those are passé. Who needs a business plan? You need a business plan. Even if you never show it to anybody else ever. Because the act of writing the business plan will clarify for you what you need to know. It will clarify, what does it mean by what are the markets? Who's your customer? Well, who's writing you the check? right? People go to Facebook and go, well, I don't understand, this is annoying. You're not the customer of Facebook. You don't get a say. You're not writing them a check. You're part of the product at Facebook. The guys who are writing the checks to get the advertising data, they're the customer, you know? So going through these functions of writing a business plan, doing your pre-patent stuff for your intellectual property, this is stuff that you can actually do in your room before you actually go out and reveal this to anybody. So no one should ever be just sitting in their room going, I've got the idea, but I'm afraid to do anything, you know? Don't do that. Say, how about I've got the idea and I'm working on a bunch of stuff that I need to do to work my idea, to bring it together, and I just haven't told anyone yet. And go do your PPA, take a shot at writing a regular patent app that describes things. It will make you at least ask you questions that will make you think. Write your business plan, describe how it's all going to work, and maybe then you'll feel more confident and you'll be actually in a position where you can say, look, I know my stuff. I don't have a question here. I can go out and find some investors and make this work. Any other questions? You've been a nice audience. And I love Kansas City. The meat here is fantastic. I've been eating barbecue. Okay?
All right, we are going to bring back up to the stage to close us out, Jim Edwards. Thank you all very, very much. That's Doug's going to be here for a couple of minutes afterwards, and then he's going to have to take off. Jim, if you can wrap us up.
Thanks, Charlie. Thank you all for being here. We very appreciate your coming. We hope it's been helpful. We hope it's been informative. We hope you've gained from having the opportunity to meet the experts that we've brought together in our brief conference today. We hope we've given you some insight into the innovation, invention, intellectual property, entrepreneurship, and what all these components make up, in our view, is the innovation ecosystem. We especially appreciate our speakers, our panelists, who each is a success story in his or her own right. And so I hope you've had an opportunity to meet some of them, to interact with some of them, and that going forward you'll take advantage of their resources. And thanks especially to Charlie Sauer for pulling all this together. If you want to applaud for him, you're welcome to. I'd like to leave you a couple of takeaways. First, at the Inventors Project, it's our view that a property right in one's invention is fundamental. A property right in one's invention is fundamental. And that property right in one's invention is fundamentally linked to the invention's prospects of getting out of the lab, the garage, the computer that you were working on or whatever, and into the market, and to be part of a successful business, whether it's your own that you build or the one to whom you sell the product, the idea. It's certainly true that human beings are inherently inventive and creative. It's also true that progress in innovation tends to spur other innovation in that same area. And certainly sharing knowledge is especially important out of the universities and other public arenas. But without the property right as secure for intellectual property as for real property, then the advancements won't be gained. If you look at the historic gap between American patenting and that of other countries, compare their wealth creation, their standards of living and economic growth, And because the U.S. patent system is premised upon that property right, it's not a fair comparison. IP that's based on the property right has won hands down. The second thing to leave you with is that the innovation ecosystem, all those components, investors, inventors, all those who are allied supporters and players in that system, it also must function well. For the innovation ecosystem to function well, that's the only way that it's likely to be productive of useful, significant discoveries that end up in commercial use, that do create wealth, and that create new jobs. There are a couple parts to the innovation ecosystem's workings. One part is cooperation and collaboration. Another part is competition. You got to have both of those elements. And that is enhanced by the fact that you have to have a role in this ecosystem for the little guy, the small inventor, the faculty or student researcher, whoever it may be, the software developer. You have to have a room for the little guy. And again, that's one of the aspects of the U.S. patent system that has been traditionally baked in the cake. If it's democratized being able to secure your property right on your own original product or idea. Much of the research and development done in some sectors is done in-house. Some is done in these small companies, and it's acquired or licensed somehow by the larger players. So the thriving innovation ecosystem uses both large and small players, and it involves both competition and collaboration. So think Garden of Eden in equilibrium with the survival of the fittest. With that, thank you all again for coming, and we appreciate your participation.
Thanks, everybody. We'll be back in touch with the rescheduled pitch contest that'll be hopefully a few months down the road.